Good evening, everybody. We call the meeting to order. If we can stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which contains one indivisible,
Teacher, you want to do roll call, please?
Tanya,
Here.
Ryan, Libby, here, Fritz, Vanessa.
Here. We have a quorum. We do have an amendment to the agenda this evening. We have recognition of town employee service years added, and the second reading of ordinance 2024-12B onto the old business. So if we can get a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight, December 16, 2024.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? And then I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes. December 2nd, 2024.
All in favor? Oh, somebody second? Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Sorry about that. Okay, new business. Recognition of town employee service years. We have, do you want to do that or you want me to do it?
I mean, I'll let you do it, but just to give everybody kind of an idea how we do it, every 5 years, we recognize anybody that's hit a 5-year anniversary. And this year, we only have 2 that have met that. And I'll let you go from there.
David Thompson will be a 30-year service year award. And then Lieutenant Mark Lyons on our police force is a 30-year as well. So we want to congratulate them for 30 years.
Congratulations.
They're not here.
They're not here. Sorry, guys.
Wants to do that.
Okay, next up, we have discussion amending the zoning ordinance to require plan commission review for substantial exterior improvements outside of the Broadway-Main Street Overlay. And this was requested by Mr. Fentz. Adam?
Sure. So for the record, I'm Adam Zaklikowski, the Planning and Building Director for the town. So this particular item, as I understand it, excuse me, I think Fritz wanted to talk about the procedure that's in the zoning ordinance related to the approval of substantial exterior modifications for commercial buildings, industrial buildings. So to be clear, the current rule is that if you're building a new commercial building or a new industrial building, those automatically have to go to the plan commission for review for their concept site plan, concept landscape, lighting, elevations. And then within the downtown area only, areas that are covered by what's called the Main and Broadway overlay. In addition to that, if there's a substantial exterior remodel, that goes beyond just painting, things that are really an overhaul of a building, that also has to go to the plan commission. If you're outside of that area, it's only a staff approval that's required to get your permit on that. So I think Fritz wanted to see if other members of the public wanted to consider changing that procedure.
Jeremy Chastain, he had to redo his building, which he had to come in front of the planning commission. And if you have, like he said, any facade repairs on the outside of your building, you need to go to the planning commission. So I thought it was all at Broadway. Well, we've got some interesting buildings on Broadway where we got the Lincoln Square, we got the Colonial Motel, and we have what was her, the beauty salon that was there?
Cindy Jackson, TJ.
CJ's? To me, I consider those part of the old town since they were built like, I would say in the sixties. And I would like them to mirror more like the whole Broadway since it's like, that's the billboard to our town. And we should have a little bit more say in what the facades look like on those older buildings if they're going to do a remodel, just like I'm held to a certain standard on Broadway when it comes to facades, and same thing with Jeremy Chastain or Libby's when it comes to getting the variance on our signs. I just would like to see that further out, just to, to just just not to say, hey, you got to do this, this, and this, but it's best to, I don't know, have them come to the design review board for those properties on Broadway.
What would be some examples of major, major versus minor? You said painting, I know, but like, what would be some other examples of?
Painting would be minor. I suppose if somebody's just changing out windows, that might be minor. Usually if it's just one thing that's not gonna substantially overhaul the complete look of it, it doesn't require going to the planning
Like if the
commission.
hotel is gonna take off the front of their building, the vestibule
Yeah.
type thing in the front there, they would have, that's more major.
Yeah, so
structural.
we specifically have it vague that way for what substantial is, so that there's some flexibility one way or the other. But generally speaking, anything that is going to be pretty eye-popping that doesn't involve simply paint, we would want that to go to the plan commission in the downtown area. I would say, from a staff perspective, I think there's pros and cons to doing it. One of the pros is that the public would be more aware as to what's going on, could make comments and could fully understand the project. So that's a good thing. The only trade-off is that a lot of times we're dealing with small businesses and they're trying to open up as quickly as possible. And it would be one more level of one more step in the process they'd have to go through. So that'd be the trade-off. But if the council wanted to, if there were, majority of council was amenable to it, then what we could do is draft an update to the zoning ordinance. And then it would also have to go to the plan commission for their recommendation back to you. But if you wanted to put something in motion tonight, we could look to put an ordinance together.
Because I'm a small business owner, I would want to go to the town because you could get some matching grants, or do they automatically get those matching grants through the RDC if they decide to do a facade repair or facade replacement?
Yeah, I'd say that is it's a separate function. It's related. But if they're participating in the facade repair program through the RDC, then that would automatically have to go to the RDC for their review for funding for that. So, and then I think, whatever it is you want to do, obviously we'll take it through the process. The only other thing that I would add is that, just for your background knowledge, is many communities do not require site plan approval by a plan commission at all. If the zoning is in place, then they just allow you to go ahead and pursue a permit through your agencies. But in this case, the reason that it was set up that way of having the public involved is because we know that it's a small town and people want to know what's going on and want to be able to express their concerns on a particular site. So it seemed like a pretty fair way of making sure that the public was involved.
Plus, I think it makes it simple if all the business owners on Broadway know what the standards are. It just creates that, okay, we all know what we got to do. It's not one business gets something different than another business, because we still have the part on the other end also at 300 West and Broadway. That's not in Old Town either. So,
The current boundaries of the Main Street Broadway overlay.
Sure, the current boundaries are approximately Garden and Broadway to Madison and Broadway. And then up to the north, I want to say the Old Town area, like Hamilton Street and that area. And then to the south, it would be Garden Street to the south.
because the reason why I brought this up, because I thought that it was already covered, and then we got that email saying that they wouldn't have to come in front of the council. So I already thought that Broadway was kind of considered in the whole area, because we have the buildings are the same, built basically the same year in the 50s and the 60s. So I thought it was all kind of, and then I was shocked that they weren't involved in that portion of it.
You got any opinions on it, Joe? Just
I think it can go either way. I mean, it's just one thing to consider is, will it slow the process down for some people wanting to redevelop or make improvements? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think our zoning ordinance is called out as far as Old Town is identified by a map within the ordinance. So were you thinking about updating the map or just the verbiage that requires the planning commission approval beyond the Old Town?
I don't know. It depends on whatever the council wants.
So we don't have to make a decision tonight. We could just,
I would think you'd want to do the map too, if you're going to do
Yeah.
you'd want to have a clear outline of what
I
you're.
think one other last important item to note is that as part of that Old Town overlay, there's also associated urban development standards that are part of that. So if somebody's outside of that area, the idea was that it's less of an urban location. It could frankly be a little bit more suburban. And so my advice would be to keep the simpler, the better always. So, if the council so chooses and plan commission, agrees, I'd recommend just, requiring all substantial remodels for commercial and industrial townwide, just to go to the plan commission, if that's the way you wanted to go.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think it's something we need to.
Were you recommending something else, Fritz?
no, I was just recommending that we keep it all the same, where all businesses are treated the same along that area where, because it seems like we have the comp plan, we're talking about buildings coming up front, but it's almost like the comp plan needs to be rewritten, because it seems like it's not going that route. It's going more where they're just buying these buildings and they're revamping them and just using them and keeping that old look anyway. From the 60s.
So what happens if like a business on, let's say there's a business on Michigan Street wants to change something? They're outside of they wouldn't be on Broadway or within the overlay. So would you be okay with that?
I think the Michigan Street is in the
It's
Old
an Old
Town
Town.
overlay.
Is that part of it? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
So you just said up Main Street when I asked.
right.
what the-
So I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
strip.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm with
why I thought it'd be easier just
I'm
to,
with you.
those two wings, basically, you're just adding a couple of wings on there to just.
Like I said, if you're gonna use the map, you ought to use a different definition for what those other things are. Because Old Town, like Adam was saying, has got a lot of other requirements. So if you take Old Town and just expand it, if that's the case, then what had been built out on the west end of town would have never been allowed. So, but it's because it's outside of Old Town.
Is that what you're anyway?
If we can reword it, just so there's some kind of, more than just two pairs of eyes looking at it where we can say, hey, I don't know how you're gonna write it. We don't have to decide on this tonight either. I just wanted to bring it up that, we're basically holding a certain standards here, but then we're kind of like the standards over here aren't as high, I could say.
Right? Like define,
I think it's an interesting topic. I just think there's pros and cons both ways. That's why it's an interesting topic, I think.
some areas to the east and to the west that we want to be sort of historically similar to Old
Yeah.
Town, but maybe not with all the requirements like Joe was saying, perhaps something like that.
Definitely thought I mean, if we want to come up with something and then talk about it more in detail, I'd be up for it.
Okay. I just wanted to bring it up that it seems like we got certain standards here, but then we kind of, because those are our billboards where people drive into town, they get their first impression of what Fortville is, and I just think that we should have at least similar standards or whatever has to be done. Because I know Jeremy went ahead and replaced his facade, and he was supposed to. It was kind of a backfill what he did, but same thing. He just had a brick front, and then he put that nice facade on it. But he did not know that he was supposed to come in front of the planning commission first. So I think it just gives us more, I don't know, more of a say what a billboard looks like.
Talk about little details and we'll talk about it. I don't know, somebody who puts that together,
Okay.
Put it together and let's talk about it.
Okay.
You.
Okay. Next up, we have council to consider the first reading of ordinance number 2024 12A, 12C, a rezone of 411 South Merrill Street from R 3.5 to CC to allow for a future parking lot for Harmony Dentistry, and the public hearing for that scheduled December 30th at the Planning Commission.
Okay. Okay, so for this item for you, Harmony Dental is a company based in Westfield, and they have a location there. And they recently purchased the Fortville Business Center as well as the former Grace Baptist Church, which is at the southwest corner of Maple and Broadway. Then they also purchased 401 South Merrill, which was a house that was owned by Mr. Cook at one point, the Cook family. There's an empty lot south of there that is part of the Cook property. And then they also bought this house at 411 South Merrill. So what's being brought before you tonight is they'd like to redevelop 411 South Merrill, and that's currently zoned residential 3.5. They've prepared two versions of the site plan that will be going to the Plan Commission later this month on December 30th. But this is just an introductory first reading of this rezone for council to enter it into the record and provide any comments or feedback. The reason that there's two different versions of the plan is the original version involved complete demolition of the home at 411 South Merrill. And I had mentioned that from a planning and zoning perspective, that the house, while certainly needs some work, it dates back to 1930. It definitely has a certain charm to it, and if it were fixed up, it could be pretty fantastic. So they produced this alternative site plan, which keeps the house and adds some parking along the alley and along the internal alley between the buildings. So lastly, in the updated comprehensive plan land use map, it does show 411 South Merrill as traditional residential. And so again, from a planning perspective, I think the optimal use on that property would be to maintain residential. However, they would like to rezone it to commercial and could fix it up as an office, similar to what they're doing at 401. So lastly, my perspective would be that would be much preferred over demolition. But we'll have to see what the neighbors have to say during the Plan Commission public hearing on December 30th. But again, that's pretty much this case in a nutshell. I think you saw some of the renderings as well for the nice improvements that they're looking to do to the main building. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. And Mr. Barden, I believe, is also in the audience. Thank you.
So if that house stays there, are they gonna remodel or what will they do with it?
Yeah, that
What's
would be the plan.
Yeah,
In fact, one other thing I wanted to mention related to that is in the ordinance itself, I had written in there two conditions. One is that the house shall not be demolished, and then two, that the comprehensive plan land use map should be updated for this particular parcel to commercial, mixed use, whatever we had. So that this way it keeps our comprehensive plan relevant all the time. So if there's a policy adjustment that's made on a property, then we still keep that updated. So.
Well, that question I had about the fencing, if they do the remodel, they have to bring it back up to, it's along Broadway.
No, it's along Merrill.
I mean, along Merrill, but it's supposed to have the frontage is supposed to be a decorative on a commercial property on the zoning portion of it. It's almost too high and it needs to be more of a decorative fencing. When you read the zoning on it, I could email it to you later. I can just bring that up at the meeting on the 30th.
Okay.
About the fencing. Okay.
I'd love that fencing to come down. I feel like if somebody's there turning left, it's hard to see because of that fence.
Or the chain link fence. Yeah.
I don't think it won't be up to zoning code if they remodel. If you
If it
read the
comes along,
zoning,
right?
it can't be chain
can't
link.
be.
It's got to be a decorative, especially in the front. But there again, I just read it and that's what it looks like to me.
And
That it'll have to come out.
Sure.
Take it down.
And then lastly, for that lot in between the two structures on Merrill, they are required to put some screening along the parking lot fronting. So it'd have to be at a minimum dense shrubs to screen that over time. So while this concept plan might not be showing that entirely, they'd have to update that to put that in there. So with that, any other comments, concerns?
So Harmony Dental bought the whole kind of chunk there and they're turning it into a big, huge dentist office chain?
So if follow the cursor here, it's just the north half of the existing building along Maple, they bought it all, but the dental office would just be in this north section here, and then all of these existing buildings or businesses would remain untouched, as would the building for the most part.
Mhm.
And the other, I think the sign, does he need to get a variance for that sign? For how close it is to the road? If you read the new zoning
Yeah,
rules.
Yeah, I know that you mentioned that, and we'll take a.
Because when you're at like if there's a fire truck coming from the opposite way, it would be a tough call, especially a busy intersection like that. But
Mhm.
just measure it. It seems like it might be too close to the road now.
Sure. Pull up.
There's a sign already there now, isn't there?
Yeah, it's there now, but he might have to get a variance. If you read the new zoning rules, he might have to get a variance, just like Kevin Crotchfeld had to get a variance.
Just wanted to share this other one here. There we go.
This is one of the. Step back, be out of the right of way.
Adam, I have a concern with the house that, Mr. Cook's house. When Rockford was trying to remodel it,
Mhm.
he ran into a lot of issues, which I think is why he chose to sell instead. What kinds of, I don't want another owner to get frustrated with a process or, I mean, I think they know all of the issues that might be there. But how do we, like there are so many projects that maybe don't get done in a timely manner. So I'm wondering, like, how do we, I'm not very good at asking questions today. How do we, not let it sit there and be an eyesore if it exceeds a scope that they can manage
Sure.
financially?
Well, good news is that they asked me even as recently as this morning, what they need to do to switch over the permit on that one. So that house is already properly zoned. And there was already a renovation permit that was issued to Rockford, the previous owner. And so now that permit could possibly be transferred over to the new owners. They may have to go back to the state for review for that Rule 13, as they call it. So we're looking at carefully what the scope is of what they want to do versus what Rockford was permitted to do. But to answer your question, worst case scenario, if there was some sort of lag in renovating that structure and it became an eyesore, then we could utilize code enforcement methods against it. But at least by all accounts now, they're moving forward, and then they actually do have professionally prepared plans by an architect. So they're moving in a good direction for now.
Are we talking about the same house?
Mr. Cook?
Is that the one on Broadway?
That's
Or is that-
Broadway, Merrill, yeah.
Okay, so that's not what we're
No, not
considering.
zoning,
tonight,
that's
though, right?
zoning, no,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
it's already zoned
I was
correct.
just confused.
Yeah.
But it's a part of the project.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
But the problems you were discussing.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about tonight.
No, that's the church is what we're talking about.
Well, I thought we were talking about 411, the one.
We are.
behind it.
we
Okay.
are.
Yeah. So if I understand this right, the three choices tonight are recommend rezoning to A, the exhibit A, rezoning to exhibit B, or not rezoning. Is that Or is that what we're
Yeah,
talking about?
yes.
I think I'd be in favor of leaving the house.
Pardon me?
But I think I'd be in favor of leaving the house.
Leaving the houses, both of them, I would be.
Yeah, not demoing them.
But everybody would be okay with converting it to commercial, right?
Yes.
I would be.
Well,
Yes.
Is there an option to not?
Well.
I didn't hear that as an option, but
Yeah, that was three. Then I said
I like, I don't know.
not doing it or doing it with A or doing it with B.
I like that option, but, keep the houses, don't rezone them, but, you know, they're both nice houses that are part of, they're both historically, you know, relevant houses that are part of a, you know, a block of colorful houses with some character on that portion of the street. And but the part that I was sort of mulling over was if Harmony Dentistry bought that whole block, then what was their intention? I mean, originally they wanted to tear down those houses, but Adam, you intervened and said, don't tear them down, but maybe you could make them into offices. Like, why did Harmony Dentistry buy those houses? What did they want to do? They wanted
They
to
wanted
make
to put a
lot?
parking lot in
Right,
here.
they wanted to make parking lot.
They were never gonna tear this one down,
Okay, the bad one,
the one in the
the
front.
worst one. The one behind is not that bad. The one in front is worse, but I mean, just an observation. The one in front is in worse shape than the one behind, but
So the ordinance in front of you all today is for just for a rezone of that house at 411, the southern one. The northern one is already zoned commercial. That's been that way for a while. So if as a council member, you don't want commercial there, then you would vote no on the rezone ordinance. If you're okay with the ordinance, the way it's written, that says keep the house.
If we zone it commercial, they could still, residents could rent it, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Even if it's a commercial, just like downtown.
Well, it depends on-
Residents on top
It
of the.
depends on
Was that
how,
different?
well, it depends on how long it's vacant. So right now there are renters in there, I think. But no, they wouldn't be able, if the house became vacant for, I think, longer than 6 months, then that non-conforming use would extinguish. And so if there were to be more residential renters in there, they'd have to get either they'd have to get us an exception from the BZA, or they'd have to, you know.
What would be the intent of the new owner then? Are they wanting to put another business in that house as well? Okay.
That makes sense.
to tear it down in the first place, right? And then, but it sounds like they're willing to, you know, turn it into some kind of business, but
That's fine.
they bought it with, they bought it, what's the phrase?
Intentions to bulldoze the house?
No, they bought it, you know, I guess I'm with Libby tonight. I'm not coming up with the right phrase, but if they bought it intending to tear it down, they would still need a rezone to do that. So they buyer beware, I guess is what I'm looking for.
No, so what the ordinance in front of you with that provision on the second page says is that actually, since we don't have a historic preservation ordinance, we can do it on a case-by-case basis via the rezone process. And so in this case, that language actually says explicitly that as part of this rezone, the house shall not be down. So that's how it would be preserved via the rezone ordinance as a special condition in the ordinance itself.
But why don't we just say, no, we're not rezoning it. No, don't tear it down. We're not rezoning it. And it's a nice house from the 1930s and people should live in it. And it's in a residential neighborhood.
You could say that.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
I think I'm not saying that, but I'll make a motion to approve the first reading from 2024-12 zone 411 street to commercial and not.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it. Do we need to sign this, Alex? I think, no, just a second.
No, this is just the process the town goes through that's not required by statute to give kind of an initial preview of what's going on. So the true statutory process will start with the planning commission and the public hearing there. Then they will make their recommendation that will come back to the council. And at that time, you'll take action on whatever they present and go from there.
Okay. Next up, we have the council to consider remaining with the Hancock Economic Development Commission. I think,
Could, I'll just start, I guess. I did bring this to the council's attention a little earlier because it's that time of the year and it's going to be time to pay our dues again. It's also been brought to my attention that McCordsville in Cumberland has backed out of the HEDC. So before just automatically signing up, I wanted to get the council's take on it and see what direction you wanted to go with it.
I guess I would like to understand what the commitment is to Fortville and what they should be doing for us and have done for us.
It just so happens Randy is here.
I know Randy's here, so we'll let you get up. Say a piece.
Pardon me. Some of you I'm seeing for the first time, so if you'd indulge me, I'd like to take about 10 minutes to say what the organization is, when it was formed, what it does, and my affiliation. Okay. All right. So, and I knew that there was a lack of familiarity because it's not the Hancock Economic Development Commission. There's a Hancock County Economic Development Commission, but that's a whole different animal. So back in, got to go back about 40 years. So actually 39 years ago in 1985, community leaders from across the county decided that they wanted a strategic effort to attract business investment in Hancock County. And so on September the 3rd of 1985, there was incorporated, wrong title then too, the Greater Hancock County Chamber of Commerce Incorporated. Now they went back a year later and changed that name to the Council for Economic Development, Hancock County Incorporated. But the purpose for which it was organized in 1985 was straight out of the statement of purpose, the pursuit of a public-private partnership to create a coordinated economic development program on a county-wide basis in Hancock County. Such program being designed to coordinate and provide leadership for the creation of additional jobs to undergird the strong agricultural-based economy in Hancock County, Indiana. B, the hiring of an experienced full-time economic development specialist to market and promote the goals of this corporation. C, joint funding by the public-private partnership endeavor to promote the goals herein. D, to coordinate all existing activities and to provide training and leadership to develop new efforts directly resulting in the creation of jobs throughout the Hancock County, Indiana area. And there were representatives, the original board was representatives from the city of Greenfield and all the towns. So Keith McLaren, who was mayor at the time, Joe Smith, who was on the city council, Beverly Gard, who at that time was a city council member. Then likewise, let's see, Dick Shank, who was on the president of the New Palestine Town Council, Mary Alice Stewart from the Shirley Town Council, Bill Sylvie from McCordsville. I think that time Bill was actually a county commissioner. Tom Foster from Greenfield, and then Virginia Harrell, who was the clerk treasurer in Shirley, Forrest Camplin from Wilkinson, and Bob Applegate from Wilkinson. And the two representatives from Fortville were Robert Heide of 408 North Merrill and Jerry Holland, who had Fortville Hardware at Pendleton Pike and Oak Street. So that was the original board. And the board was set up and the bylaws created it that every community got 2 seats on the board, one a government seat and one from the business sector. So going back to the late 90s, I'll fast forward about 15 years. In the late 90s, I was sitting in my law office at 1 South Main Street, and Steve Vendel, I'm sure some of you remember Steve, who used to be a real estate broker down the street here, came in to see me. And Steve was saying that he was Fortville's business community representative on the HEDC board, and that he was spending his winters more and more in Florida and didn't have time to go to the meetings, and would I be interested in serving? And I said, well, I don't know much about it, but sure. So Steve came over and submitted his letter of resignation. I came over and submitted my letter of interest, and the town council appointed me to the Hancock County Economic Development Corporation to be the business representative representing Fortville. Now, the only thing I cannot remember, I know I was appointed in 1999. I don't know if it was at the beginning of 99 or at the end of 99 for 2000, but suffice to say, I've been on the board a long time. In 2004, I was asked to join the executive committee, which made me an officer of the corporation. And so from 2004 through 2018, I was the secretary of the corporation. When I went on the board in 99 or 2000, we had a part-time executive director, and that was Daryl Thomas. And if you remember, Daryl used to be the high school principal at Mount Vernon. I still have the letter because I was the secretary of the corporation forever. So October 1st of 2003, he gave us his 90-day notice that he was going to retire at the end of the year, and that it was time to hire a real economic development person on a full-time basis. And so in early 2004, we put out, actually, we didn't even have a job description. Fortunately, one of our board members was, I think someone that was maybe with Indianapolis Water was also on another EDC, and they had a job description, and we just took that. So we posted a job, received resumes, and we ultimately hired Dennis Malloy. And some of you may remember Dennis. Dennis started in 2004, and he was our executive director until the end of 2011 when he left to take a position in Southern Indiana. So we did this again. We posted the job and we conducted interviews, and I was in both of those scenarios. I was being on the executive committee, I was one of the interviewers. And so in May of 2012, we hired Skip Cooker. And quite frankly, Bobby Keene, who was the CEO of Hancock Health before Steve Long, he and I were the chairs of the search committee. And, you know, Skip just sort of knocked our socks off. He was just wonderful. And so we were thrilled to get him. But a year and a half into his reign, he was diagnosed with throat cancer. That was the fall of 2013. We all remember pretty well. And from 2013 to the end of 2018, he was in treatment. He was in remission. He was in treatment. He was in remission. He did what he could, the best he could. But by the end of 2015, early 2016, he said, we probably need to form a search committee to start looking for his replacement. And so we did that. And it was a grim task, let's face it. But in the course of all that, I had said that, at some point I always thought that it would be a nice career that I would like to kind of step down to. And we started thinking in that direction. And then in 2016, I'll never forget, I was on vacation celebrating my 60th birthday. And I thought, I am too old to do this. So I called Steve Long at that time, who was chairing that search committee. And I said, Skip's right. This is a career position for somebody. This is a great job. This is a growing community. Everything's happening. I took my name out of consideration. I said, I'm 60. I can't do this for 20 or 30 years. So we formed a search committee, and we took resumes and interviews. And honest to God, the best person we found was a certified economic development professional from Lincoln, Nebraska. And the thinking was, the way things were starting to heat up in Hancock County, you couldn't import talent from Nebraska. You kind of needed to know who was in the community and what the lay of the land was. So I I revisited my prior conversation and said, like I said, I can't do this for 20 years. And I can't do it for 2 years till you find somebody, because I've worked trying to build a law practice. I can't be an interim until you find a permanent. And I said, well, maybe I could do it for a decade. And that was my job interview. And they said, sure, that sounds great. So the decision was made at the annual meeting in January of 2018 that I would start January 1st of 2019. But they also put me on a consulting contract in the interim to go to meetings in Skip's place in case he couldn't go, because bad days are bad days. So I was kind of on call in 2018 with the decision, a hard decision, that I started January 1st of 2019. And to make matters worse, Skip died January 6th of 2019. So it was rough. The first year was rough. Then the second year was COVID. And 2021, we started kind of getting our sea legs under us. And quite frankly, 21, we were still very, very busy. So 21, 22, 23. So I'm wrapping up my 6th year. And I think I'll do it another couple of years maybe. But that's how we got here. It started out with me being Fortville's business representative. Now the dues, is it still 2,500? Well, so here's why. When the board was originally established back in the 80s, they thought the fairest formula was everybody pays their fair share on a pro rata basis per person. So I guarantee you the population of Fortville in the mid 80s must have been around 2,500 people. Those dues have never been raised. Obviously, there are more than 2,500 people in Fortville today, but that was the thinking. That's why some of the towns are, we set Shirley's at 500 and they didn't have room in the budget for that. They dropped out just because they didn't have the excess cash. So that's how the due structure has been. So county government contributes the most because there are a lot of people that live in the unincorporated part of the county. Greenfield pays second because it's the only city and it's the largest community. And that's how the organizational dues have been arranged as far as the public entities. Now, private investors, there's a hard scale. You pay this, or you pay this. So that's how we got here. And that's why the dues are $2,500. But I think that I wanted to read the statement of purpose there because that's what I do. I don't work for county government. I don't work for city government. We are organized under the Indiana not-for-profit law. We are a nonprofit, tax exempt under section 501c6 of the Internal Revenue Code, which is a business advocacy groups. So we, as a 501c6, we could operate. Skip, for the last couple of years, said we need to be a 501c3 so that we can hold land. And I realized that we had been in existence for over 30 years and trying to convert from a C6 to a C3 was just madness. So what we did is we created another organization that's ancillary to HEDC. We created the John Hancock Community Development Corporation. It is tax exempt under 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. It's a public benefit corporation. And I'm the volunteer executive director of that. I draw no money for that position. But if you've been paying attention, you know that Hancock County is building a career tech center called Amplify Hancock. HEDC was the grant applicant for Ready 1 for our region. And it was our region through HEDC that was granted the funds. So I'm the one that signed the grant agreement with IEDC for $5 million. That was the award. And then there was a board created, which is a standing committee of HEDC that allocated the funds and where they went. And $1.4 million was granted to Amplify. Well, that 1.4 got paid in. The grant went straight to the CDC because they could hold the funds. And we bought the land. And then the county government is going to build the building. So we deeded the land over to the county. So that's one of the things that it's not business attraction, but it's workforce development. The idea is We're going to skill young people up and skill the adult population up. And we're going to do that at this facility. And so I felt that was a part and parcel of, in the global meaning of economic development, that should be a part of what we're doing. So we have supported that. Honestly, Mount Vernon schools, we're going to probably benefit from that more than the town of Fortville or the town of McCordsville or the town of Cumberland. But, you know, I talked to Superintendent Dr. Parker at the open house, and he said he thought that when they opened the doors in the summer of 26, there'd be over 500 high school kids going in that facility for career training. I'm really proud of that. Is that what I was hired to do? No, but it's a part of what, it's just what's good for our community. I think that, so the reason we have our annual meeting, or we call a fall celebration in September, it's our birthday party. And that's when this document was presented. I will say that we had a wonderful turnout, but no one from Fortville was there. And we also, I would say that since 2021, coming out of COVID, we got a subscription to Zoom. All of our meetings are hybrid. We meet live at the Community Foundation in what they call the Thrive Center, because it's a nice big room with wonderful AV. And then we send out Zoom links. So I will tell you, I was very happy that Fritz was at our last meeting live, and we had a chance to talk, and I thought that was great. And I do know that there are issues that are, I would say, particular and unique to Cumberland and in McCordsville that don't necessarily apply, I think, here in Fortville or in Palestine. They've got some growth issues that they feel like that they need to deal with along the county line over there, and that's fine. I suppose, are there any questions? Oh, something else. This, I'll give you an idea of what we do and how it operates. So when Mitch Daniels was governor, he took the Department of Commerce and sort of cracked it and remade it as the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. That is the state agency for economic development. So if you are Ford Motor Company or Amazon or whoever, if you're thinking you want to open something in Indiana, their first point of contact is IEDC. And they say, we need to find 100 acres to do this or that or whatever. And there's a sites person at the state, and she pushes out this request for information, and it goes, and sometimes they will say, we don't care where, and it goes statewide. It goes to all 92 counties. Sometimes they say they want to be in central Indiana. So when it's that, we get hit with those. And so we have Anna Voras, who you'll probably never see. She's our operations manager. She spends all of her time responding to requests for information. And I just kind of read you, this is what I presented at our last meeting, project updates. So just in the month of November, we received from the state 11 requests for information, 6 we responded to and 5 we didn't. And through November 30th, we had received a total of 109 requests for information. We responded to 46 of them and no to 63 of them. And the yeses and nos have to do with inventory and capability. So the number one thing that knocks us out, and it's kind of funny when you say this in Fortville, is lack of access to rail. We have 2 rail lines, but we can't get on them. The closest rail access is either Anderson or Avon out on the west side. So if it's rail required, we're out. If they need, and some of them do, they have processing and they need 150 feet stacks. I've been told across the county, we're not going to do that. You know, there are 50 feet height requirements and you can get a variance for some amount of that, but no one's going to go 150 feet. So those are a lot of things knock us out. Sometimes it's heavy industrial, it's dirty. And I have certainly had the government officials say, we don't want dirty, we want clean manufacturing. If it belches smoke, don't bring it here. If it bleeds, don't bring it here. Okay, those are political policy decisions, but I certainly listen to that. So those are the kinds of things that knock us out. I will say, for something on the positive side for Fortville, you're starting to develop something that is unique and within the county. If someone calls and they need a 1,000,000 square foot building, that's easy. I got 4 of those in Mount Comfort. But trying to find a building with 25,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet, those startup entrepreneurial spaces, those job shops, no one's building them. Except out here on West Garden Street. About a year ago, I got a hold of the broker, Mike Cook, I think it is. And he sent us brochures. And so at least twice, maybe 3 times, we have submitted those buildings for projects. So that's a good thing that Fortville can differentiate itself on. I know that there was a project supposed to go on the kind of back here, and I know that that's gone off the rails in some way. I don't know much about that, but that's something that we can try to work on. So that's what I do. That's what we do. So any questions on that?
I don't think so.
Got that done in about 10 minutes.
Happens. Yeah. What I liked about going to the meeting was just the networking, because there's developers there. And by us showing up at the meeting, we can say, hey, we're looking for this, we're looking for that. And that's the reason I like going, because we can say, hey, we're looking for 55 and older community. We're looking for this. And if we show up, it doesn't have to be me. I was just invited by heart, I don't know, a gazillion times to show up, and I just happened to show up. And I found the meeting interesting.
So it's funny you said what you did. I actually was kind of complaining a little bit to the executive committee back in like 22, 23, that the construction guys were knocking on our door wanting to join. And I kind of started having them throwing elbows a little bit, So we have 5 industrial developers on our board, but I had no finance people. And we had no architects and engineers. So I was able to recruit and rein. So Ratio has joined our board, which has BB Design within that. Mark Beebe's doing a lot of work here in the schools. And I got HWC Engineering to join. It's like, okay, so we got guys that build them. We need people that design them and people that engineer the sites. So, I've been trying to be strategic about recruiting particular members that have certain skill sets, because I'm a lawyer. I push paper. So, I've worked with public works projects before, but you need architects and engineers to tell you what the hell you're looking at. And so that has been a bit of a strategy on our side. Also in January, one of the board members is kind of aging out of the process from Greenfield Bank. And so somebody new will be coming in, more of an analyst. And so we're going to do some more financial forecasting and things like that. Make sure that we're being prudent with the funds. Run a pretty tight ship. All right, enough me talking. Whatever questions you have.
Are these monthly meetings that you have?
Yes. So our monthly meeting is the 3rd Wednesday of the month at 8:30 in the morning.
So we have a meeting this Wednesday, Wednesday. And
now it'll be abbreviated because it's Christmas. Every year. So there'll be an approval of the minutes. By the way, I'm the executive director. I don't vote on anything. I work for a board. I definitely work for the executive committee. So I kind of moderate, but that's about it. But the last meeting of the year is always approve the minutes, see what the slate of officers are that'll be approved in January, review the financials, get the first look at the budget that will be adopted in January. I'll give a brief update, and then we'll have social time. And that will all be, there'll be snacks and things like that and networking. But I would also say this, something that I have noticed over the years, how things have sort of segregated out, and I'm not sure it's necessarily healthy. So county government has 2 seats, and one for the county commissioners and one for the county council. And commissioner shows up, not one of the underlings, and the county council person shows up, not one of the underlings. The city of Greenfield has 2 seats on the board, the mayor's office and the city council. And at least this mayor is showing up to the meetings. He's not sending anybody else. And Dan Riley, who's the president of the city council, shows up. These are decision makers. That's how that's worked at the county and the city. The towns have tended to delegate that out to the town managers or sometimes the planners. And that's fine. But the decision makers and the ones that authorize the payment probably ought to be the ones hearing the conversations. These guys are busy. I know what, you know, if they can make a meeting, they're hopping on the screen or they're trying to do whatever because they got daily duties and stuff happens in towns on a regular basis. It would be great if somebody sitting up there would show up, because after a year, we have 11 meetings a year. We always take one off in the summer because you have a hard time getting a quorum because of summer vacations. But you know, just hopping on that screen, if you don't feel like driving to Greenfield, that's fine. You can sit there and have your coffee at your desk or at your kitchen table and just hear the discussion. I think
So
it's
do you give out Zoom for that?
Yep.
Because I've never seen one. Okay.
We can change that
Well,
up.
maybe you should send it to all of us. So whoever wants to get on and watch, we can watch.
And by the way, so the town gets, I was telling Mitchell this today, I'm kind of cheating a little bit. It used to be that we had to really police attendance because we were in a small room in the Chamber of Commerce building that held about 30 people. That was it. Well, now that we've gone virtual, we're in a big room. The town they're always going to get one vote. I don't care if 2 or 3 people from the town are listening in. If it comes to a vote, only one of you can vote. But the more people hear the story, the less I have to come and repeat myself of what we do.
Yeah.
So I think I'm trying to foster understanding here.
So
So
we didn't know about the meetings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we know now. I got it wrote down.
we'll take care of that. So
Yeah.
make sure that we get everybody's email addresses.
Yeah.
All right.
He probably has them. That's-
He said, so now you see what I don't do.
Sure.
So thank you very much.
So I had a couple of questions before you go. Thank you for coming and speaking with us. I'm interested in bringing successful American businesses to Fortville. And so I had a couple of questions. First of which is, could you tell us about HEDC's involvement in bringing BWI Industries to Greenfield, south of here?
Thank God that got here before me. What I know was, so Skip worked on that, the city of Greenfield worked on that. I was there for the ribbon cutting because they opened the facility in 2019. That process started in 16 or 17, maybe, I'm not quite sure. But, you know, there were people that were very excited because that was the single largest foreign direct investment from mainland China in Indiana. I mean, the governor spoke at the ribbon cutting, all the big top dogs at IEDC were here. It was a big thing. It failed for a confluence of reasons. And so now they want to leave, but they can't. They can't vacate the building because they have a contract with Ford to produce shock absorbers for the Maverick pickup truck that's built down in Louisville. And it's quantities based. So Ford's told them they can leave once they have 10 months of inventory built up. Well, that's never going to happen. So we're stuck with a building that's 2/3 empty that the tenant wants to leave. The city wants them to leave so they can repurpose the facility and we can't get them out.
Did Skip promote this? You're saying it's before your time, but so did your predecessor endorse this?
Say so.
So they didn't know, how were they to know before they got here,
Yeah,
kind of
so
thing?
So BWI is an interesting anomaly and so BWI stands for Beijing West Industries. That's what they are.
Yes.
So what happened was, this goes back to 2008, when the Great Recession and General Motors filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They all filed bankruptcy, right? So Ford stayed out, but through the bankruptcy court, GM had to divest themselves of some of their operations. And one of the things that they sold off was the design group, which was a an engineering group out of Kettering, Ohio. And those are all American designers over there. And that's why BWI was built in Greenfield, because they needed to build, they'd gotten contracts to build things for Volvo and for Ford. So the big Ford plant down in Kentucky, but they wanted to be close to the designers who were in Kettering, Ohio. And so it was Chinese money. Everybody that worked there, all the superintendents, all the designers, all the suppliers, they're all Americans. So it is a mixed bag.
All right, I had one more question. Thank you. How did the HEDC get involved with the America-China Society of Indiana?
Because of BWI,
And why did you sponsor them until 2022?
because they don't, well, we did. We
Why? Why?
Because it was, we thought they were going to be good corporate citizens.
Somebody asked you to?
I don't remember. I honestly, I'm not, I just don't remember.
Mm.
I would say this, we have been members of JASI since the 80s, which is the Japan America Society of Indiana. Because the very first, I can't say the very first, but when HEDC was formed in 1985, by 1987, Indiana Precision Technologies had been landed there on the new road. And so we have supported the foreign direct investment here. The lion's share obviously is China or Japanese. We have lots of Japanese plants throughout the county. And I think the thought was, hey, we've supported all the Japanese firms, we'll join the China America Society.
Is that Japan isn't a covered country according to the federal government, so.
Well, I
they're-
assure you, I don't have TikTok on my phone. I
Well,
understand.
that's good to know.
I
Yeah,
understand.
I was just curious about the America-China Society of Indiana because they have a contract or had a contract with the IEDC to provide the IEDC with lists of Chinese companies to bring into Indiana, of which one of them was BWI that went into Greenfield. And I've stated at these meetings here that I personally, I'm trying to spread awareness that we don't want Chinese companies in Fortville. I don't, and everybody I speak with agrees with me about it. And so I was surprised to find that HEDC was sponsoring this company that the IEDC was paying through a contract to bring in more Chinese companies. And this is from a covered country that we're trying not to do business with at a federal level. And now, as of earlier this year with HB 1183, the state of Indiana doesn't want to do very much business with China either. And so I noticed that you stopped sponsoring them back around 2022. The America-China Society of Indiana, their website kind of went dark around 2022. There were no more updates to their website around that time. So that would probably be why you didn't sponsor them as much after that. But
I'm not even sure we were there in 22. I mean,
you were, yeah, your organization shows up on their website as sponsoring them in 2022, but their website doesn't have any more updates after 2022. So it was hard for me to figure out what was going on since then.
I remember going to one event downtown post-COVID, but I thought it was 21, but don't hold me to that. What I can tell you is, in light of the BWI experience,
Not a good one.
well, I can tell you that at county government level, at the city of Greenfield level, hell will freeze over before they'll ever incentivize a Chinese company again. I had a site selector come early this year, like late January, early February, with a solar developer. It's a Chinese company. I said, it's not going to happen. They tried to divest the interest. I said, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
What's getting at was I'm curious about HEDC's posture toward Chinese businesses at this point, given BWI as a case study and the fact that our legislature is banning lots of types of Chinese purchases of land through HB 1183, and the IEDC failed to renew their contract with the America-China Society of Indiana. Just what's your posture toward Chinese businesses at this point?
Well, I think I told you a while ago, I don't make decisions. I execute the decisions of others. But I can tell you what I'm hearing and seeing is there's no appetite to do that.
HEDC doesn't make decisions?
No.
What
I
do you?
convene conversations. We get requests for information. We submit sites. We try to bring buyers and sellers together. And do you want this in your community? I don't sign any documents. I don't make any deals I don't have decision-making power.
Would you put forward information from a community that you would know would not want to do business with that type of company? Do you just passively kind of put information forward, or do you make any judgment calls based on what types of businesses certain communities would want or wouldn't want?
Well, I can tell you right now, based on a particular person on my executive committee, don't ever bring us another Chinese project. Okay, so if I get an RFI, we don't respond to it, right? I take my marching orders from others. If not given any guidance on that sort of thing, but I can tell you the political climate that we have in this county at this day, what it was in 2016 and 2017 was probably different. But today, no one wants to talk about Chinese companies.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, other than, I know there was BWI back in the day, and I had a site visit from a site selector out of California back in January. He loved a site in Mount Comfort, and he flew out here. I said, I don't think this is going to happen. I mean, we got on the phone with IEDC. It's like, this is just not going to happen. And so that's the way it went. I don't foresee any more Chinese companies ever coming to Hancock County. I just don't see that.
I hope not.
I don't think anyone will vote yes. Somebody's got to vote yes. They come and ask for incentives.
Yes, I know BWI took 11 million in incentives and was functioning for about a year and a half, and now they're kind of defunct, so I know. Well, anyway, thank you though. Maybe I could call into the meetings through Zoom and maybe try to weigh in somehow that way and not take up more time tonight on this. Thank you.
Well, keep in mind, you don't have to make a decision this evening, so I mean.
Oh, my mind's made up about China for sure, but anyway,
We
thank
know
you.
that.
I think you and 79,000 other people in the county.
That's it. And all I'm trying to do is see how we can ensure that these things don't come in here. So for you to say that, there is an appetite among whomever, it's, still to my thinking, not quite good enough. The answer is, we don't want Chinese companies here. BWI was an adequate case study. We don't want any of that. And how do we ensure that that doesn't come here? And how do we know that you're helping us not let that come here?
I don't know how to prove a negative.
Just be an advocate. Don't let that come here. And then
No.
that will help.
That's what he said.
Yeah, well,
Several times.
Well, he can't.
no, he said he can't do either way. So if you're passively giving our information to people who, if some Chinese company wants to come here and you're giving our information saying, oh, here's a location, we don't want that.
He's not doing that.
Because he
He
knows.
sends them back.
And if I know, which obviously I can have a conversation with the executive committee, do you want us to deal with this or not? But I will also tell you that RFIs, when they come in blind. They come in with code names. There is a developer of energy storage systems interested in this, and this.
Yeah, I sees to it that it comes in that way. Do it. Listen,
No, that's not accurate.
I've spoken with them.
They're going to maintain the confidentiality. The companies won't say who they are. So that's how it gets laundered before it ever gets to me. Probably maybe watched a couple of times, but I never know who the company is.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, thank you for answering my questions about it. I appreciate it.
We don't have to make a decision tonight. When do we have to make a decision? When do they get their money?
You don't give them money until you made a decision whether to move forward.
So I talked to Anna this morning. She's trying to get the decks cleared because the last week between Christmas and New Year, she's going to be emailing out invoices. Okay. But that doesn't mean that you got to turn that around in 10 minutes. If you need 3 months to ponder this, I want a yes. I'd rather have it later than a no sooner. So, right. So
Thank you.
So we're just the small little town here in the county. And so I know that we've not been on a radar, and for several years, we didn't even know what we were looking for to economically develop. So it wasn't like you could really help us because we couldn't give you the information to help us. So is what I'm hearing is that we just need to participate into these meetings to be able to get attention or to know what we're looking for, to know how to ask for help.
I think there are a couple of things. I mean, just hearing the conversation is significant. You get educated, oh, this is what's going on in the county, because otherwise it's word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth, and what you got is not even close to accurate information. If you hear the discussions in real time, first of all, you hear what's going on. Second, then you can kind of plan around that. Hey, that thing's coming. How do we capitalize on that? Either what we have in our community here, because I tell you right now, the easiest economic development that the towns can do right now is housing, because there's a shortage. And if we land some project that needs 3,000 employees, I'm not saying, I just was tossed that up in the air. There is no such project like that those are the parameters. But the point being, what you want is people coming into the town and buying ice cream and getting wills done and, haircut and things like that, buying cigars. But so thinking, okay, these things are coming because Fortville's set up now. I mean, Main Street got done in the last decade. Now Broadway's done. If you can navigate it, you've seen what's happened on Main Street in the last 10 years. It's wonderful. All we're going to get is more of that.
To me, just going to the development and communicating and listening is that we really have a shovel-ready project on South 13. It's shovel-ready. We own the homes and we've already done a lot of the work. It's to me, wouldn't you call that almost shovel-ready?
No, we don't.
Well, you got
Shovel ready is that's when the infrastructure is in and you're ready to start building the buildings when you're shovel ready.
But the utilities are nearby. I mean, I've got places where you got to run a water line of miles. So,
Where's that line coming from? That's my question. Where's that line coming from?
That depends on down there.
Is it Green Star?
No, citizens. Citizens only one that has the capacity to do what they're talking about. Anything big, we're talking Citizens Water, Aqua Indiana, and Duke Energy. Because these things, can't tell you how many in the last 18 to 24 months, how many RFIs we've gotten for data centers and data center parks. Those things are ominous.
What do you know about 9 Star going back to the commissioners and trying to take back some of the sewer territories that had been given to the communities? I know McCordsville, Greenfield, New Pal, Cumberland, Fortville, we've all got sewer districts.
Right.
It's my understanding 9 Star is wanting to claim some of that territory.
I have not heard that. I'm not saying that's not happening, but that's been outside my earshot. I haven't heard that. But I'll pay attention. See? Since hell.
Makes sense for us to grow outward, but if we're sitting here waiting to grow outward and the development starts in the Mohawk area coming this way, they're going to cut us off.
So I can tell you one thing that is certain at this point, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, but this is real, that in 2030, there will be an interchange at 70 and 200 West.
Clear.
Okay, well, that was hypothetical, and maybe if this happens, that could happen. And NDOT and County Highway inked that in the last 30 days. 2030, the funding system is in place and there will be an interchange. So creeping to the southwest kind of makes some sense. I know that Greenfield's saying, well, we probably ought to be starting to march west a little bit to try to get near that new interchange. So those things are just going to happen organically. To me, the land of opportunity or the no man's land, and that's for y'all to figure out, is east of town. Whether annexation to the east or extraterritorial, whatever. But from Meridian Road to 9, there's nothing.
Well, I will say too, before we'll be a little more diversified, not be just a bedroom community. I mean, we're always going to be pretty much a bedroom community, but we still want to have other taxing entities.
I understand.
2% and 3% taxes.
I I'll remind you guys of this. I own one piece of commercial property in the county and it's in this town. So I'm invested here too. The only real problem that Fortville has is that it sits in the corner of 3 counties. So you've got customers and thank God you've got utility customers that don't live in town, but you know, there are AVs across the county line and if something happens over there, you only get a bit of that. I mean, and so trying to grow, Fortville proper is only in Hancock County, but we got people out on Ponderosa Road think they live in Fortville. You know, we routinely have people try to register to run for office and they live in Hamilton County. So you got to be here a while to get to know the geography.
Right.
And that's why I'm thinking the South and the East, at least, are places that, because West is, you know, McCordsville's there and that kind of has been established. North is just out of the question. And so East and South are kind of the ways to go.
And I've already said this once before, is like the sewers is that McCourtsville is already annexed up to 400 and they could easily just annex across, even though we only have an MPO sign with them. They can just come right across that border also.
We do have an
I
MOU.
mean, so we
have an MOU where.
it still it doesn't mean anything.
And
I hope
so far, all the conversations I've had with them, they're willing to stand behind it.
I know, but it only takes 3 council members on any board to say, no, we want to zone over, and they should just keep moving east.
I don't need to hear that one.
Oh, no, it's true though. They can.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else? Brian?
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Okay. Guess we'll ponder that for a while. Next on old business, council to consider the option of moving forward with the plan for the trail along East Broadway.
We've got Dave Benefield from the MPO is here this evening. So I brought this up at the last meeting. I had a little bit of a hard time explaining it, just knowing that there's a lot of variables out there. So the costs aren't always in black and white. So he is going to try to help explain how this works without having those
Yeah, I can.
hard numbers.
So David Benefield, Madison County Council of Governments, otherwise known as the Anderson MPO. So I know you have a lot of questions, so I thought I'd just throw it back at you guys and hit me with those questions and see if I can assist in explaining. It is confusing. It's understandably confusing. I have to explain it a lot, so.
First of all, Adam's going to put the, if you could just kind of walk through that and explain what it is that you're promoting.
Okay, so first of all, so we have an unfinished existing project our agency awarded, which is phase 2, if you will, of the trail, basically connecting the school portion to what is just completed with this whole Broadway project, correct? So unfortunately, we had that slated to go to letting. We would start a construction process again right now, sometime right now, 2025. We're in state fiscal year 25. Even though we're not in 25 yet, it goes from July 1st to June 30th. So unfortunately, there's a permit issue that has to be done. It takes about 18 months. Is that, Joe, what they said, 18 months, a year and a half?
Yeah.
Your design consultant for the entire trail project, VS Engineering, has to submit that. They waited to submit it until they knew we were going to fund it for sure. There's always question marks. You guys recall the Main Street project got delayed by the railroad and we didn't expect that. And I had a bucket of money and nowhere to put it and I had to move stuff around. It happens outside of everyone's control. So here's another situation. We waited, but we didn't have enough time. Joe did not realize that permitting process took a long time. The reason why they didn't get it a long time ago is that it has a sunset date. So I think it only lasts 2 years, 3 years. I'm not sure exactly, but they were afraid that we were going to do this process and we have to do it all again. It would just cost you twice. So they were going to hold off. Unfortunately, we held off. They held off too long. They weren't ready to do that second phase. So we looked at other options before we moved forward with this idea, because that left me with, for another reason, I describe it as my bucket of money left and I can't spend it. And it sounds like I could just always tell Joe, I wish I could just write the Oprah check, but I can't. I have to go through processes to get it done. So I said, we talked about splitting that project in half, getting rid of the permit portion and maybe doing this, but they had to update some things for this, that, and the other, and they said it wouldn't be ready, so we decided to scrap that idea. So I said, hey, Joe, you've had this, trail system on kind of, we've already started it. We want to connect everywhere. We've already done that with the Hancock County Trails Plan, I believe. It's been discussed in your comprehensive plan, as well as we've been talking about it for a while. We actually tried to include and get NDOT to extend their area a little bit, so we get a little more of what we call phase 4, because we knew they were encroaching on that. But as you recently know, they wanted to stop short of that intersection because of the pedestrian connectivity, those crossings and things. We went through that with the High Street closure item. They didn't want to, they really want to stay out of that area because they don't want to have a sidewalk to nowhere. Now we have the sidewalk to nowhere. So I said, Joe, let's fix this problem. Let's fix the sidewalk to nowhere, address the High Street, the crossing at Elm. I believe there's a funky ramp there now. Someone told me about. There's not a ramp that doesn't have the truncated dome pad there, so it has to be added. But NDOT said, we'll build this to that High Street, through High Street like they did, but we're not gonna do that. So that's one thing. So I've extended it on back. That yellow line doesn't show that completely here. But basically we would talk about the phase 4 would include, well, actually, this is not phase 4. I'm not sure. Joe, I don't know, who made this map? This is not the map. Okay, this is not exactly right.
It's kind of dated.
Well, yes, but but we'll get the gist of it. So there's basically how I do program projects, which is what I was going to talk to you about initially. So, we split up the trail project into pieces. So a couple of reasons why we do that. One, for communities' affordability. Number 2, for my affordability. I only get about $2 million a year-ish to give you. And if you get to construction exceeds these days $3.5 million, $3 million a mile on a trail, which sounds ridiculous, but it is the sign of the times, like milk and bread. So we split it up, and Joe, this is not exactly right. So phase 4 starts actually just on the other side of the intersection. And then phase 5 is here, connecting into what you already have, which would be on the north side. No, I'm sorry. It is on the south side of the road.
My map is right.
Yeah, your map is right here. Correct. And then space that's going to get you all the way to Winston. Here is a 4th phase, if you will, or not a phase, but another portion of this project that would fix this intersection, connect the High Street, fix the Elm crossing there, fix whatever we need to do in front of the real estate property. Also address what we might need to do for a driveway permit for the future development south. If you remember correctly, I was here at the meeting, the redevelopment commission, and your developer was not going to pay for anything of that approach that NDOT would require through a driveway permit to connect their road that they were going to build to. And then you also had the High Street extension to the east that you were going to do. So I said, hey, let's do that too. Let's get it on paper, get it designed. We'll do it all part of this and do it all in 4 phases. I have a bucket of money. I can get you plans done, shelf ready, so that next time a developer comes in for that intersection specifically, you would have that information. They wouldn't have to do the driveway permit. With that driveway permit, they are required to do a traffic impact study on this. It's anytime you redo a signal, you have to do something like this, but really they do on major intersections for like a corporate campus. They would make you do something like this, even if it wasn't State Road 13 or 67, but this is pretty major. So I'm sure they would do it. NDOT would want to have a say. That would allow them to look at all the pedestrian crossings, get your little push button things for the pedestrians to cross, all your crosswalks, all the ramps, all the bells, all the whistles, ADA, where it's not right now. Again, I tried to get them to include that in the project they just finished, but I didn't win. So that didn't happen. So that's what was going on with that project. So any questions of what I've said so far?
Yeah, I got a question.
Great. So
Okay.
gonna do for you.
So you put all this together, but then, so we the trail that finishes from 200 to the school.
Correct.
That was the funding we had for that, but then, hold on. They decided to put Maple and Broadway together. They put those two together, kind of put the funding behind on that project. So it slowed that project down. So how do we get the money back for stuff like that? And then if we move forward with this, just any little setback kind of like throws the money out of whack.
So keep in mind, again, I have lots of, I don't have the bucket of money. I'm not Oprah. I have the bucket of money, but I'm not Oprah. I can't make I get the money. If I don't spend it and get it into an existing purchase order, it goes away. My bucket of money is, I'll give it to another MPO and they'll trade me and I'll get the money back. That's how I get extra money every year. NDOT placed some parameters on us. We used to not have what was called the build it or use it or lose it. So we didn't have to. We could kind of bleed over into the next year, and we'd have that bucket of money. I wouldn't have to worry about it. Since 2014, 13, we can't do that anymore. So I am very, very strict on what I have. So again, back to originally that phase 2 was supposed to happen this year. Because it can't go because of the permit, I can't spend that bucket of money on that project. So it's going to have to wait.
Yeah.
Phase 1 was always going to happen.
Can you
Yeah.
kind of elaborate on how all the
We need
funding
help
got
in
delayed,
getting everything.
going back to Main Street and the railroad pushing funds
Yes.
back for a year, and then
Yeah.
you had to give money to another MPO and.
Yes. So when we first started, I first came to the MPO and we started kind of figured out, we were trying to, how do we do this lose it or use it or lose it process? And how do we get projects funded? We're limited on funds, so on and so forth. We created some processes, some policies. You can go to our website and I will direct you to, so I kind of like what we have a call for projects. We call it the Project Eligibility Review Process, PER. It's what our version of a call for projects. We created that back in 2014, 13, 15, something like that. That's when you guys applied. The first step in that is like, here's a form in your own words. What do you guys need in your community? And we sent it out to all of our communities. We need a fire truck. We need a trail connecting this and this. We need this road fixed. We need a culvert. Well, if I get, if we put some in a pile over here and some over here, obviously I can't give you a fire truck with transportation money. That's Okra. That's a HUD application. A culvert, I can't just give money for a culvert. It has to be a part of a road, So we devised what Joe had submitted, and Joe, you submitted, I think everything that you submitted on, you got eligible, basically.
And keep in mind, that was 2014 or 2015.
14 or 15. You were in the very first process of this call for projects. We had never had this policy before because we never needed to use this before. So Michigan Street went first. It was the low hanging fruit. We could get that done pretty quick. It was minor things that happened, even though it was the easy project. Joe, remember, don't ever say easy project. It's never an easy project. Second project was Main Street. We wanted to get that done first. It was a long time coming. I think it looks great. I think it works great for the community, even though we lost 4 parking spaces. I think it's great.
We've gained more than that back with additional parking.
Absolutely. Yeah, it all came out in the wash, and it's only get better. So and then at that time we had phase 1, 2, and 3 of the trail. The third phase was the piece in front of the school. That was the easiest one as well, the cheapest one, the easiest one to do for a couple different reasons. That's the other part of this is when I'm putting these together, I split them up into workable pieces, not only for your affordability, for my affordability, but for example, so in front of the school, it was shorter. It didn't have a pedestrian bridge where we had to do work, which causes that permit that we don't have. You didn't have to go buy a historic home. Tanya, you're involved in that conversation. So that costs a lot of extra money. And Joe, if you remember, I put that trail on the opposite side, so we'd have to deal with that home. But there were a lot more property owners over there. There's good reason for it, but things like that. I piece it out so it's, path of least resistance, most affordable. I try to do that with every community, best to my knowledge. So we went forward with all the projects. Main Street, what happened? We went forward with it. Everything was going fine. Lots of public meetings with the community. You had a little side group. I believe you had a consultant on that project that worked with the business community because it's so important. And it worked out, very important, I think, doing so. But the railroads and utilities have more power in this country, and they're untouchable. They're untouchable at the state. They're just untouchable. It's unfortunate. DOT can't do anything. They can call them and call them and call them, and they will not return phone calls. And it's horrible. And that's exactly what happened to us. They have a review period where they have to review plans. You have to create special plans for what you're going to do in their right of way. Until they approve them, you can't go forward to letting. So we didn't have all that done. It was supposed to go a year before it actually started construction. And I was left with a bucket of money because of the railroad. And I had to figure out where to go. So, and I forget what I did at that
You
time.
gave it to another.
I had to give it to another community, I think, to get them going. So when I had to move everything around, my whole 5-year plan, move all the money around because it's not as easy because the projects aren't ready to go. I think I had some money. I let another MPO borrow it, which ended up good because I have a project that's under construction right now in Alexandria, and they needed the extra money. We weren't sure if they can do all 3 of their phases, but they got to do all their phases at once because I had some buckets of money and got some payback. So that's the kind of thing, scenarios that happen all the time. It's very, very difficult. So here I am with the bucket of money. We can't do the trail 2. It is going to set it out of whack with the timeline. The great thing about that trail 2, me and Joe talked about this multiple times, you've got developable property and Adam's going to make them build a sidewalk.
Trail.
And you've already built part of that sidewalk or sidewalk trail, sorry, per the plan set. So if you get another development, which is likely based on what Randy said, we need more houses, which is true. Yeah, you're going to get the rest of that paid for. So it's going to get cheaper and cheaper, less and less you have to do. I think we still have on the pieces that you did have to install, they did not do the pedestrian orient lighting.
Yeah.
So they still have to go back and do that on there, but so that helped answer. It was unfortunate, but that's how the cookie crumbles, if you will. I mean, I didn't have any power. Joe didn't have any power over it.
So we just keep applying for that, or we just?
We're not applying for it. I've already awarded it. It's just a matter. As soon as I get money available, and as soon as we have a permit that's live and not going to expire, or, which I'm timing this, I'm looking, and I can't say for sure because I have other projects. And what if a railroad problem happens? An unforeseen project, and I have a bucket of money, and I've got to move that project down. I would tell you for sure 2027, because next year is taken by another project for sure. But that's the next potential option for me to be able to
I think it was more of a Libby question that last time on that trail too, when it was going to get done, and then it was pushed back to like 2028 or
2029.
And you guys always have the option to do it all 100% local. You don't need my money. Have a bake sale. I don't know. So, I mean, it is an option. You have that plan set. You're all ready to go basically as soon as that permit's done.
Well,
So you
just
can move
just kind of is explaining to you, just kind of as an example on how the process works. But help understand the Broadway corridor out here, what we're looking at on the east part is he's wanting to fund a portion, 90%, hopefully, of the design and start to lay it out and figure out, what it's going to take to build this trail. Once we get that paid for, and again, these other projects started in 2014, 2015, it takes a long time to get down there. So the money that we commit to that is probably going to be stretched out over multi-years. So it's not going to be like, you got to come up with $300,000. It's going to be,
how much do we need to come up with now?
So this is the other part of what I'll explain. So I've got a bucket of money. I wasn't ready to give you money for this project, but I'm being forced into a situation. Now, remember that PER, that call for projects process? Normally that process is much longer. I would normally review what Joe's idea. I would say, here's the scope of work back, which I've done. I've done that part. And you've seen that document, right? And you've provided that to a consultant to kind of give you some ballparks, estimates. However, the next step really is I got to sit down with Joe and explain it to him. And I went through that with you and Adam, actually. We sat down. The next step after that in this process is that I work on what's called a red flag investigation. So this is part of our PER process. It is a requirement of the environmental process of any federal highway project. And basically looks at I always say, looks at where what bees, the bunnies, the birds, and the trees, so you don't hurt them, right? You're gonna look at all those potential things. Some of those things cost a lot, like a permit is one of those. You may have to do a section 106 review process on a historic property, those types of things. And that gives you an idea of all those extra dollars. Because if I'm going to promise to give you money, I want a good estimate. I don't want to say, oh, yeah, we need to do this too, which happens. I used to be a consultant, worked for a consulting firm. It disgusted me what they did to communities. So I'm not doing that under my watch because I'm in a different spot here. So I do this red flag investigation already required because I do it. It'll save you about $2,500 from the consultant, not have to do it. And I give that to Joe and it tells you, has maps, it's to the NDOT standard. And it gives them a much better idea, not just they got to do survey, they got to do design, they got to go out and do this, that, and the other. They know they got to do the regular NEPA process, but it gives them all of the extra stuff they might have to do. And they get a much better, closer estimate. That would be the next step. I've already started working on that. Haven't got it done yet. Normally takes me 3 weeks to a month and a half to get it all done. And then I give it back to Joe, and then Joe will take that scope, that RFI he gets with his consultant to do that he's going to have do the estimate. I will sit down with them, make sure the consultant understands what the scope says. I found out the first time around they don't understand. You can write something one way and people interpret it differently. So
We need to do the RFPs as well. We need to do RFPs first.
well, no,
We have to
No.
select the consultant.
no. This is before you select a consultant. Absolutely. Says that this is before. I need estimates to know if I can give you money. This is part of the process. Because remember, I had applicants, not just you, Fortville, when I did the call for projects, I had Fortville, Alexandria, Pendleton, Ingalls. And I had to say, okay, I have this much money this year and this year, and I have to say who's going to get what when. Normally that would happen. We're in a much condensed, I have the bucket of money. We're on a condensed process. So normally, Joe, yeah, I know you got to do an RFP to select the actual consultant. This is
That's what I'm saying. We have to do
But
it.
that has to happen after I award you the money. You haven't even got an award.
I'm jumping ahead. I'm trying.
You're way ahead. That's so I'm saying, I know, Joe, I know you want to speed things up. Yeah, the speed of government, I'm sorry, but the red tape, but in the long run, it's going to help you because I'm going to know exactly how much you're going to need. And then we can increase that by years for inflationary purposes. But we get some ballpark information, ballpark number. And that's when I can give you a number that actually means something, but we don't have that yet. So the best I can do is, like I told Joe, I have another project in Pendleton. It's a much longer project. They just went under contract, had the RFP, selected consultant, got actual numbers before and got the contract. It's much longer and includes the installation of a historic bridge they've had sitting down there on the road over there off the side, Fall Creek Road. If you've ever guys know about it, it's going to get installed finally.
No, they installed it. It's just not completed.
No, it's never been installed.
Oh, you're talking about the one up to, okay.
It's in the middle of their waste pit
Yeah.
or right or whatever off the side.
That's been there a long time.
Been there since 2009. I have the paperwork.
Cause I go wading over there.
Yeah.
And I see that bridge.
So that's a part of that. So you don't have that either. It's longer. Basically, it's called their business park trail. It's going to connect the McDonald's area, the pedestrian bridge to nowhere, the downtown. That was already supposed to have been done. It was already awarded once, but again, like Joe talked about, we awarded it and then we had to do it out of order because NDOT decided to do an interchange, and we're like, well, they want to do the pedestrian bridge, so we moved all the money over there, and then they're just now getting to do that. You remember that pedestrian bridge was done 2019. The business park trail was funded in like 2017. So that was another example of how the money I have a plan, but nothing ever goes to plan. So
That's our trail.
yeah, sorry. That's what I'm getting to. Theirs is under contract for 1.2 million for a PE. That's the first phase. 3 phases of an NDOT project. PE, right of way, and construction. PE involves all the stuff to get ready to purchase whatever property or prove you own it or that process. So that includes the environmental. In this case, it would include that driveway permit. I'm including the traffic impact study. Yeah, and then all the design, each set of
There's
plans.
certain things that he's talking about as well, as far as environmental, historical, and all the other investigations you have to do. You have to jump through a bunch of those hoops to be eligible for these funds. So even if he comes up with funds in the future for construction, if we have a set of plans that's already been designed, but wasn't designed with all the right criteria, then it'd be a little harder to get that funding.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be done through the federal standard. You would have to. So 1.2 million to compare how much this would cost, what you're asking, because we really don't have a good number yet. We're not quite there. I'm still working on the RFI. So Joe, I can sit down with the consultant, make sure they understand what we were requesting to get some solid numbers. I would say it's going to be less than 1.2 because, you know, I hate to say that's going to be that high. It might be, probably won't be because it's much farther. If you think about from McDonald's all the way to town, that's I think it's a lot longer than what we're talking about out here. Second is it's not including historic bridge and you're not going through a historic district. We're not going through anything historic out there. There's nothing historic. The biggest issue is that intersection. So if that helps you at all. So 500,000, 450,000, what Joe's talking about, what I have and what I'd like to give. I have out of my bucket of money, I get a certain amount annually of what's called safety funds. Joe, you just did a application for safety funds through state that they were trying to get rid of some of their safety funds. Did you ever get awarded on those?
No, they denied it.
I'm sorry. I should talk to them about that.
Yes, you should.
With that new gas station that's gonna be at Ohio and the 67, there's a gas station. They would go ahead and put that trail in even long before.
That's an Adam
But-
question, but sure.
So some of this stuff is gonna be piecemealed in anyway.
Same thing from like the town hall down to 13 on the south side. As all this develops, the developer will be required to put that trail in and we'll save those dollars.
Same question, Pendleton, why do we want to draw it if we're going to have this piecemealed in here and there's going to be a gap and a piecemeal in here? I'm like, keep in mind, they're already going to do survey all around it anyway. It's just connecting lines on a AutoCAD
Right.
map. So it's not that much more than what you're already spending.
It's easier for us to work with developers and do a partial passing in front of their property and then come back and fill them in or have some project like this connect them. But it's not always easy to have state and federal funds to go putting in a trail and it doesn't go anywhere. So they don't like to do that.
Yeah, and the requirement of using federal funds up
Getting
front,
harder.
as long as you build it, it's fine. They don't care how you build it. You don't have to, you could never, ever use any federal funds for construction and spend what, 7.5 million or whatever you want to spend. I don't know what any price is going to be these days, and spend it all local money. You don't have to use federal dollars. Some MPOs don't fund construction, FYI. Some only fund PE and right of way.
At phase 5 again, because where does it stop? Does it go all the way to, or does it
Yes.
stop
Yes.
at that?
The idea is how.
It actually connects to Bill Camus.
Yeah, Bill's.
No, not 5. What's the other one along Broadway?
60.
6.
Okay, 6 does, okay.
It's all along the south side of the road. Stay away from the railroad.
So that one would probably be more of an NDOT request on that one rather than phase 5. Phase 5,
It's probably not going to be within the right of way. It will be outside of the right of way.
okay.
Yeah, they go outside the right of way and then build on, you'll have to purchase the right of way in front of those homes.
You still have to get permission from them to build a trail along their highway.
Well,
even if
it's outside of them. Right.
I just want to jump in really quick. For the decision makers, I think there's one important aspect that you just need to be aware of and that the public needs to be aware of is that if the town decides to use, correct me if I say anything wrong, but my understanding is if the town decides to use federal money to do the construction of this, it's going to end up costing Fortville taxpayers more, and it will take longer than if we did it fully locally. The only positive is that we know that it would get done, because obviously there's so many different priorities that the town's involved in. Having in the pipeline, we know that it gets done. But I just wanted to make sure that you're upfront about that before you eventually make your decision on which direction you want to go.
And I will expound on that.
And I will agree with that. Do you want to say something first?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
almost
Sorry.
contradicting. And but as far as like when we was talking with the engineers, the cost for us paying for it all 100% local. If we have the MPO and your state funds, it's going to increase at 15 to 20%. That entire price goes up 15 to 20%, but he's offering either 90 or 80% of that cost, which we would be paying the 10 or 20%. If we take it on ourselves, the project does not cost as much, but we are paying 100%. So if it's a $2.5 million project, you know, if we can get 10%, we're paying $250,000, $300,000.
But
If not, we're building the whole 200.
with Adam, to frame it, yes, to do something with government money, it costs more. That's basically what it boils down to, because we got to make sure we don't hurt the birds, the bees, the bunnies and the trees with federal dollars, because somebody will get mad. And we don't want that. So we've got to make sure we do that. Unfortunately, that's the only way to do it is through red tape. So step one is this RFI, but there's lots more after that once you get a consultant under contract. But that PE process, you're still going to have design plans for somebody to go out there and dig and do it. So like Joe says, you're still going to have, like Adam said, you're still going to have to go out there and build it. It's still going to cost the same. The additional cost to construct it is probably not going to be much different than if you did it on your own with 100% funds. The only extra cost is the environmental review for the birds, the bees, bunnies, and trees, and any of the double checks that NDOT requires to make sure it's built to a federal standard. Or if, maybe you guys would allow a subgrade of this much and NDOT requires a subgrade of this much for federal standard, things like that. Because NDOT has standards because they don't want you to build something and then it just deteriorate over time. If using federal dollars. So there's
We
no
have
standards
concrete
are in
trucks
place.
sitting on the new trail.
Say so in the project.
Absolutely. They have review processes. It's their policies. It's their money. I mean, they rule over me. I have to meet all these. Remember, the use it or lose it, that's their rule. That's not federal rule. That's a state rule. So yes.
Well, that was my one small question. Where do you get your funding from? You said you have your bucket of money, but where's that coming from?
Sure. I've explained this. Everyone asks me, what do you do for a living? And I try to explain people. So every community over 50,000 in America has what's called an MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, by federal statute. And then we get by every 10 years by census data, they identify what's called an urbanized area. Sometimes it expands, sometimes it shrinks. But so our area starts in Anderson, and I know it sounds like we shouldn't bleed all the way down in here to Hancock County, but we did before Indianapolis came here, and then you were with us already, and you've signed an agreement past 2 times to stay with us. So if you were with Indianapolis, you guys wouldn't get any money, and you guys know that. Because talk to other small communities on the fringes, they're not getting any of that MPO money from Indianapolis. And there's just, they have limitations. Indianapolis MPO has limitations. So you think about Miami, Florida, Chicago, Lafayette, Cincinnati, Ohio, every community like that in America, over 50,000 metropolitan area has one of these organizations. So where does the money come from? Federal transportation bill. Every time it's renewed, there's a certain amount of money. It goes to the states. Instead of the state getting the money per capita, I get the per capita for my little area. Lafayette gets their money per capita for their area. Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, South Bend, all the big areas. So to help you understand. So it's still same federal dollars, same transportation bill. I just know my area better. I know what you guys want, or at least I try to, and I give it to you. Because if we relied on NDOT, who knows who would get money? I don't know. No offense to NDOT, but who knows? Because that's a lot to manage. They already have enough to manage without our little pockets of metropolitan area. That help? Vanessa, understand?
So do you help with any interior sidewalks? Because recently we had somebody come in from Leland where they built the road, and the sidewalk and the road are the same height during a long stretch. How do we get funding stuff for that to be repaired?
So my funding is limited to what's called functionally classified roads. Those are the bigger roads that hold more traffic. You guys don't have a lot of them, and I've already spent all the money on those roads. Michigan and Maine and Broadway's not yours. It's actually NDOT's. Probably Fortville Pike probably is on there. I'd have to look. You can go to our website and click on functional classification, see which ones are highlighted that could receive money. I didn't look before this meeting, I'm sorry. But I'm limited to that for anybody. Any MPO has to be to a certain threshold of big enough road. So your local roads, it's local decision, local problem. Sorry.
Community or CMG, yeah.
Yeah, community crossings grant program that the state created. It is all state dollars, so you don't have to follow federal regs. You can include improvements on that, including sidewalks, updating ADA. You told me, correct me, they've added that you can add new sidewalks corridors now?
Not that you can put sidewalks in only on the roads you're constructing or doing. If you're not going to extend the road this way, you can't replace sidewalks, add them or anything.
Right, it has to be a whole complete street, so you're going. So
It's when you apply for those funds, you have to apply from point A to point B. You can't go outside of it.
Right.
And if you've got curb, drainage, under drain, sidewalks,
Yes.
trail, you can include those in that project.
And you've gotten how many of those for how many years? You get that a lot, right?
About every other year we've been doing.
Yeah,
it.
it's a great program. A lot of communities, especially small communities use it.
My question is, we just did the budget. So where do we get the $45,000 out of the budget? Is there a line item that we've set aside in the?
We don't need it right away. It'll come, the payments will be due over time.
But where does she?
The project that we just are finishing up with on phase one, I'm hearing that they're still trying to finalize the numbers, but it looks like it's gonna come in about 400,000 under. So if that's the case, that'll, be a little savings for us as well. And then with the trail that was already put in by the developer down by the school, that was money we had earmarked to do that. So that's money we've already saved for that. So.
So it comes out of that budget, the
Yeah,
45,000.
it's in that band that we've got for the.
I kind of did I wanted to see what $45,000 buys you in sidewalk, and it buys you like it buys you 715 linear feet.
Not much.
45,000. It gives, it's so, prime example, $21 a square foot to remove sidewalk and replace it, frame it up and all the other stuff. So that's $63 a linear foot if the sidewalk's 3 foot wide. So I did a little math, and so Helmcrest, for example, you could probably get 11 lots done basically because they're 65 feet
You
wide.
can't go very far.
Pardon me?
You can't go very far with it.
Yeah, I figured out it's like 715 linear feet.
That's why we're trying to
45,000.
do a lot of our sidewalks with the road projects so we can get the 75-25 split.
Right, I'm just showing that's what you get.
Yeah.
And to that answer your other half of the question, I was going to say, how do we fix things that are being put in and making sure those types of things? I'm sorry, but that's Adam with whatever development
Right.
approvals, plan commission. And he does a pretty good job of making sure they do stuff. You've heard them tonight. So I think he would do that. So that's your go-to guy. If you got something that needs to be fixed, say, if this ever gets redeveloped, we need to fix this.
I just wanted to know, a game plan over there in Helmcrest, there's quite a bit of sidewalks that are pretty bad.
And there's some that don't even exist on some of those roads. I know some of those. And I would question, can you even build some? Because there's there's not a lot of driveway to put a sidewalk in front of those homes because some of them, not all of them, but yeah. So, but I don't know. That would also be a plan commission issue to discuss. Your plan commission and Joe with his CCMG, that's how you would do local roads that I can't give you money for. Is your answer. Anybody else have a question?
Leland's kind of a main artery through middle of town.
So the last thing I'll say, since there's no other questions that I'm hearing, so the bucket of money they have is about $450,000. I get about that much. It does go up. It depends on the transportation build. I hope I still get that. You never know. They could just take it all away from me. Who knows? And then I won't be talking to you at all about any projects. But I do have $450,000. It is highway safety improvement funds because of the pedestrian connectivities items that those are allowable. And I got it pre-approved before I even talked to Joe about this, before I even said 90-10 and said almost all federal funds are normally 80-20. So 90-10 is special for safety. So I only get 450. That's why I'm saying, hey, let's throw the whole 450 at you, get you at least 90-10. Now, if you take 450 away from 1.2, okay, using that Pendleton project as kind of a ballpark with no criteria, and we're guessing here. That's how much more money I still need to get you. Now, what Joe said, remember I talked about 3 phases of NDOT projects, PE, right-of-way construction. PE and right-of-way, you do contracts locally with people that you RFP, just like you're going to hire someone for your roof to build, and then they're going to bill you monthly or bi-monthly or however you have it set up in that contract. And it's piecemeal. So this 1.2, if it did come in at 1.2, piecemealed over a course of at least 18 months to go through an environmental process, at least. So normally 2 years. So you got 2 years to pay $1.2 million, but not 1.2. Potentially, if I can get you more 90-10 money in the future, only 10% of 1.2. Oh, so pretty good freaking deal, I think. I don't know. But if you don't want to move forward with it, I understand. That's totally up to you. I just have a bucket of money. I'd like to give it to my communities rather than giving it back to the federal government and looking like a failure outside of my control, or trading with another MPO, which is probably what I would do. So I know South Bend needs some money. So I'd rather give it here first. So as soon as you guys know, I can tell South Bend if they get some or not. So And then, of course, we need to go. Next steps are, if you guys want to go, Joe wanted to stop before we did anything else, get you kind of go ahead before we went. I finished this RFI and we sat down with someone to get us some better estimates. And then I decided if we can really do this thing or not. And then we can come back to you and really give you some really much better than just some ballpark 1.2. So, does that help everybody?
Yeah, that,
Right.
thank you,
Okay,
Dave.
no problem.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
I think we should go ahead with it. My opinion. Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree.
You're good?
Thanks for coming and explaining to us. Appreciate that. Do we need to make a motion or just, Joe, go ahead?
Let's ask Alex what his opinion would be on.
Make a motion. I make a motion that we move forward with the plan, trail along, East Broadway.
I second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? We're moving on.
Well, thanks. You just committed to me to almost another 10 years of quarterly tracking and quarterly meetings.
Thanks, but no thanks.
I was thinking I was just about to get out of those. We get
Job security.
Okay, next we have the second reading for ordinance 2024-12A for the Fortville Dora. And I think nothing's changed here.
I did clean the ordinance up a little bit where there was an option in there, option 1 and option 2. The council, unless I misunderstood, made it sound like you wanted to go with option 2, where Landmark Park was included.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we took option 1 out of that. And I'm not seeing it here, but then I also cleaned up the map a little bit for exhibit A. If you've got it there in front of you, if you see anything on there that doesn't jive, I followed the legal description that was spelled out in the ordinance.
And then if the project on stats, that the building on Stat and Main, if they decide that that ever goes more of a restaurant there at that 3-story building, we would just redraw the map to include them, right?
You'd have to amend the ordinance and
Okay.
add that in.
Thank you.
One thing I noticed, Joe, is that we do need to add in here, and this is something that you and I can do after the location of the signs along the boundary.
Okay.
I had another Dora that I was working on for another community, and the ATC came back and asked for that, and we had to show that. So before we file, or at some point in time, we'll need to designate. And those are the signs, just for everybody out there, that say you're now leaving the Dora area. So finish your drinks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, put a trash can there.
Anybody have any questions about it?
Good.
I'll make a motion to approve second reading of ordinance 2024-12A establishing the Fortville Dora
With those amendments.
with those amendments.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We need to sign this.
Just while you guys are doing the signatures, just the next steps, ultimately, I'll need to upload this application to the ATC. They'll review. It can take anywhere from the 30 days to much longer than that. I'll push them, but we will need to get together, and I'll work with Joe on this, the designated vendor forms for each of the restaurants. So Denver's will have one, Taxman will have, I mean, anyone that's going to participate as a designated vendor that we listed in here. And so we'll need to coordinate with them and have both the business sign. It's a 1-page form, and I'll put these together. And then Tanya, you'd sign on behalf of the town, or Joe can sign as town manager. But so we'll get that. That's part of the application packet that gets uploaded to the ATC.
Okay.
Once we have those, then we'll get it in the queue, and hopefully they'll turn it around quicker than they have some, but government.
Yep.
It's kind of a theme tonight. The
Yep.
speed of government, or lack thereof.
Hurry up, wait.
Thank you.
Gotta do
Okay, so then the second part of that is the ordinance 2024-12B, amending the ordinance for alcoholic beverages in town parks and related penalty schedule. So we need to make a motion to approve that as well.
It's governing alcoholic beverages in town parks and related penalty schedule.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. There's the signature right there.
Adriana, just for, we will need to publish this one since there's a penalty attached to it, so. Go to the paper. The second one.
Okay, so next we got Joe.
You got me next. Okay.
That's what we did last.
Just to let you know, Dave Thompson and Alex on a sewer use ordinance update. We'll probably have it for you at the next council meeting. We need to get that amended and sent off to IDEM, so look for that coming up in your emails to be reviewing here in the next couple of weeks.
A lot of that too, you'll see, sorry, Joe, it's just cleanup of change of administrative code sites that are repealed and new sections. So consistency thing there, it's long, it'll look long to you, but it's just a cleanup exercise.
Our salt spreader, the small salt spreader that we've had for at least 10 to 12 years has finally bit it. It's rusted through and having some issues with that one. We were able to find a replacement. We got 3 quotes, 72,625, 7,433.99, and then mid-state truck and equipment for $6,500. Just to let you know, we've ordered the one for $6,500 and we'll be having that installed later this week and hopefully be using it as soon as the weather requires it. The next question I've got for you folks, our mower that we use on the streets and the town hall and the empty lots and stuff, it's wore, the deck has been destroyed on it and it's time to replace it. So we went ahead and got some prices on new mowers, trying to get ahead of the price increase for the next year. We actually got 3 prices. The highest one is $14,399. And we've got 2 of them from different places with the exact same number, $13,599. One of them is Superior over in Greenfield. So I would recommend purchasing that mower from our local Greenfield establishment, but that is outside of my scope. So if you guys could approve those funds or not.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
I'll make a motion to approve. What was the total again?
$13,599.
$13,599 for a new lawnmower.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
There you
you.
go, Joe.
Joe, I had a question
Yes.
for you, or did you have more things?
But go ahead.
Well, it's lawnmower adjacent.
Yeah.
So, speaking of salt spreading, do we have any thoughts about how we're going to plow the new sidewalks on Broadway? We talked about it a while back, but
Typically, we don't touch sidewalks. So we do the sidewalks on Main Street, but most of the other sidewalks, if they're snow covered, we just can consider them closed. Unless the property owners go out and clean them off. We do have an ordinance that requires the property owners to take care of that. However, when there's a long trail that's 3,000 feet that runs through an empty field, it's kind of hard to ask them to go out and shovel that snow off. So-
Load up snow all the time.
Well, and that's where all the NDOT snow is gonna go, is up on the sidewalks. So we don't have any way to clean the sidewalks off and get rid of it without throwing it over on private property. So that's,
how do we do, I mean, if we do it on Main Street, then like if we plow Main Street, by the same logic, why wouldn't we plow the Broadway?
Main Street's a little bit of a different animal because that's a local street. It's not a state highway. And we're able to go out there in the middle of the night when there's no traffic, clean stuff up, put it in a pile, haul it away and dump it at another location, which usually takes 2 or 3 days after we initially go and clean the sidewalks. If we're trying to do that with Broadway, one, I don't know if NDOT would allow us to be out there with equipment doing that. It would take a lot longer and we'd have to have another place to dump all that excess snow.
I mean, did NDOT create a safety hazard then? Because by putting sidewalks there, they're nice. I like the sidewalks, but just this weekend after it finished snowing, they iced over and I almost slipped on the sidewalk. So if somebody fell, what happens then?
Well, and that's a great question because I mean, before the sidewalks were there was nothing to walk on.
Right.
So at least now we have sidewalks and once they're cleared and the sun cleans them off and everything, that we do have pedestrians that can get out and move around again, but,
No, but until then, I
Wouldn't
mean,
use them, wouldn't use them, just don't use them.
then we should close them. I mean, when you said just there a little bit ago that if it's, since if we can't reasonably plow them, then it would be considered a closed sidewalk.
yeah.
So then do we have a plan then just to outright close the sidewalks to eliminate the liability to the town?
What we've always said in the past is if the sidewalks are covered and impassable, then we consider them closed. We can't sign them. I mean, there's way too many. There's no way we can go out and sign all of those and take them down.
Yeah, I mean, like Alex, what do you think about this? I'm concerned that it's a safety hazard and a liability. We need to either make it safely passable, or if it's not safely passable, there should be a way to indicate that it's closed. Or is there not a legal issue with that?
Without a doubt, the country that we live in, if someone goes out and walks along a snowy, icy sidewalk, even though the town's policy that is closed, and they slip and hurt themselves, they're going to sue the town. Now, that's why we have insurance and whatnot. I mean, it's just a reality of, I don't know that they succeed. Is there a liability? Of course. Again, we live in that kind of culture where people like to sue everyone, even if they have fault. I don't know that there's a way to go out and close, like Joe said, close this path. I mean, what are you going to do? And you put up ropes, you put up signage, people still walk on.
Distraction, so I don't think we're gonna stop them if it's snowing.
Yeah.
Choose across the. Take out,
And I was among them for sure.
which obviously it meant it was unsafe.
It's unfortunate what you're saying, Alex, but I'm just saying, it just sounds like NDOT put something here that they're making it harder for us to maintain through the winter. You're saying that Main Street is a local road, but Broadway is a state road. And so therefore our hands are kind of tied about whether we can maintain a state road through the winter conditions.
Oh, we can. I mean, according to NDOT, they put that on the locals to maintain the sidewalks.
On the
And the
state
right of
roads, on the state roads.
But what the locals have done, what we've done is we've put that off on the homeowners to clean it in front of their property to maintain that.
Okay, so just we're proceeding with the assumption that it's on the businesses and the property owners.
I think I have mixed feelings because it's nice that we get out and clean Main Street off and make it easy for the pedestrians. But I went out one year and did that by myself. That was 30 years ago. Now we're doing it every year, every snow.
I was gonna say, I can remember a time when we didn't do it.
I know.
And they had to, and a lot of
I took
times
it
they
on my-
didn't do it on Main Street, and
I was surprised. I lived in Carmel for a few years before I moved here, and I know Carmel's not a popular comparison place, but there was one time when they didn't get to the sidewalks for like 2 or 3 days after snow, and that was like a big disaster. Like, how on earth could they not plow it for 2 or 3 days? But we're here with these brand new sidewalks on the huge main stretch of town, and we're just not going to do it. It just seems kind of surprising, but I've brought it up. I was just curious. It's it's kind of dangerous.
I think
just like
once the snow comes, they start plowing. It depends on how big the snow is. I think what you'll find is the sidewalk on the south side will probably get covered. The sidewalk on the north side will probably just get covered so many feet. And the sidewalk beyond that, we'll be able to clean that to where pedestrians can walk in there and access the crosswalks, but not necessarily getting rid of all the snow that's on it.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Next item I just want to give you a little update on Don Bowling. He's our street and utilities worker that's had open heart surgery. We were hoping to have him back to work by now. Unfortunately, he's had some complications, so he's going through his sick time, personal time, vacation time, and soon to be on FLMA for a short period. Hopefully, we can get him back to work and get him healthy again before he has to be out of work very long without pay. So that's kind of where we're at with him. Just keep him in your
Is he
thoughts.
still in the hospital or did they release him? Do you know?
As far as I know, he's still there. I haven't heard any different.
Yeah. Well, I hope he gets better soon.
And that's all I have this evening.
Adam, you have anything for us?
Nothing from me unless you have any questions on anything.
Heath, come on up.
Evening. I'll be short and quick. Obviously we had Winterfest this past weekend. Things went well. Weather turned out relatively good considering, first week of December. Steady flow of people throughout the day. I'm just giving you guys a heads up now. There'll be probably some changes moving forward after talking with Pat and some other things. We're going to need to look from a safety standpoint at changing a few things, particularly in regards to the parade. I know it's popular, but unfortunately, with the increase in traffic that Fortville has seen over the last decade, and the fact that we closed down Main Street, it pushes a lot of that traffic artery-wise down Merrill and some of the other side streets that are right in the route of the parade. So I don't know what it looks like as far as maybe adjusting the parade route and making it even shorter. It was suggested to me that maybe we put together some sort of walking parade, maybe, costumes, that type of thing with kids in different groups and start down at Greenfield Bank and walk on Main, which would then not have to worry about any sort of pedestrian traffic crossing Merrill, Stat, all those high traffic places. The other issue that we had with it, we tried desperately this year to try and change some things from a logistical standpoint, getting people in and out of Memorial Park. And unfortunately, just because of the width of those roads, and even though we've got parking this year, which we didn't have last year because of construction, it's still an incredible mess over there. And my concern, honestly, is that somebody is going to get hit. I was out directing traffic and trying to figure out where people were going at some point in time, and I was stopping traffic coming in. I had vehicles flying past me that shouldn't have been flying past me. We've kind of outgrown. Again, I'm not opposed to things like the parade happening. We are just going to have to figure out logistically something that makes sense. And if we can't, then we may have to just stick with our Main Street Winterfest, Kid Zone, that type of thing. So that's something we'll have a conversation about moving forward. Natalie sets all the parade stuff up. So I'll take a look at it. I'll get with probably Pat and Fire as well. I like to include them just because they have a lot of insight as well. So that's really about all I have, unless anybody's got any questions in particular for me.
I think it turned out really good.
We had fun.
You guys did a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heath. Patrick,
I have,
are you awake?
I am struggling. I haven't eaten dinner yet.
Okay.
When I ran a Mountain Dew about an hour ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have two requests for this evening. Last year I made the request for additional, any leftover canine funds get earmarked for future use for the future purchase of a new canine, because that one will eventually retire. Same request this year. I just need a motion made for that. So we can continue to build those funds. So when it's time for Oscar to retire, we have a backup plan. And then I know this year we had vehicles and equipment that were ordered that I have not received yet. I'm asking the same thing. Any funds that were unused be earmarked for vehicles and the equipment for those vehicles. Ford has told me today that one of the Explorers will be built January 11th and the other one's January 13th, but the original date they told me was November. So those are my only two requests. It's just kind of earmarking some funds moving forward that were unspent for this year.
Two separate motions? Is
Just do
it?
them together.
I'll make a motion to earmark future funds for canine and vehicle purchases with the canine equipment,
Vehicle.
with the vehicle equipment. I
There you go.
apologize. Sorry.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And then other than that, I don't have anything. Want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and see y'all on the flip side, unless you have something for me.
Think we're good. Adriana, anything from the treasurer?
Nope, not unless you guys have something for me.
Okay. Alex?
The same, nothing unless you have questions for me.
Public comment?
No, I've never done this before, so. My name is Melissa Gall. I own a food truck, and I've done business, like I have a Hancock County permit,
Mic'd up closer
Yeah.
to you.
and I do lots of events in Hancock County, Marion County, Hamilton County. I live just up the road, and I do a lot of stuff volunteering with the VFW. And so, I'm so nervous, sorry. My issue is that I was supposed to originally be at Summerfest. I applied through Natalie Tucker, who runs the vending for the town, and it got pushed back a week, and then we were going to be out of town. So I emailed her and let her know that we would not be here. She said, no problem. Would you like to put your fee towards Winterfest? I said, yeah, that would be great, because we did Winterfest last year and we did really great. And so she said, okay, well, when I send out the applications, just mark down that you have paid and you're going to be for Winterfest. I said, okay, great. She never sent me an application. I was caring for my father-in-law who passed away in October. And so I didn't think about, asking her, hey, I haven't received the application yet. But I did reach out to her October 31st and asked her, are you guys going to put us next to the VFW? Because that's kind of where our supplies are at. She said, yeah, no problem. I'll put you next to the stage. You can use the stage power. I said, okay, great. My assumption was that she had us down because she told me where we were going to go. She never said, I never got an application from you. So then when I emailed her the day before, because I didn't get setup instructions, I asked her, are you sending out setup instructions? And she said, well, I don't even have you down. And I said, well, how can that be? You told me that you were putting us next to the stage. It's all in an email chain. She said, well, I see that we've been talking and I did tell you that, but I don't have your application, so you're not down. I said, okay. I didn't make a fuss of it. I was a little upset, but after what I went through this year, it wasn't a big deal. I was like, I'll just volunteer with the VFW. It will be fine. So I asked her, are you going to refund me then? And then she decided to lie. She said, well, I have to send your refund approval to a board and then I'll get back with you. I didn't know any better. I said, okay, that's fine. And then Saturday, people were asking me, how come you're not there? How come you're not there? I work with Three Rivers. They bought gift certificates for people to eat at our truck. And I was like, told them what happened. And they were like, well, I don't know what you mean about your refund has to go to board. Natalie runs everything. I said, oh, okay. Well, when I saw Natalie, I said, hey, Natalie, can you go ahead and send me the refund? Because it doesn't have to go to a board for approval. We made the check directly to you. It goes to your personal account. And then a couple of vendors were questioning, why are we paying a town employee for a vendor fee that goes into a personal account? Like, that's not legit. So then I started questioning, had she just said, I'll give you your refund the next week or two, I would have stopped, but she started lying to me. So then she got mad at me when I asked her about my refund. I said, that's fine. I'll find out how I can get it. So then I decided to go on the town website and look for who she was accountable for. I'm assuming because she was representing herself as a town employee, because that's what it says on the applications, that her boss would be Mr. Luther. And then I looked on the page and she's listed as an employee on the page. Again, I'm assuming she works for the town. I talked to him. Right away, she had already spoken to him. So he said, well, I don't know what you want from me. Talk to her. She handles everything when it comes to the vendors. I said, well, who is she accountable to? He said, she does it. She does all that. She deals with all that. You got a problem, you got to talk to her. I said, well, she has to be accountable to somebody because we're vendors. I own a business. We're writing a check for a vendor fee to go into a personal account. She's representing herself as an employee of the town. I'm assuming, and probably everybody else is assuming that she's accountable to somebody. He said, well, she's not. The only thing she does is she does all the vendor stuff and we do these sponsorships. And then I mentioned again, probably 2 or 3 more times, how come her name is listed as an employee on the town page? And you just kept saying, I don't know why you're telling me that or why you're asking. You said she hadn't worked there for over 2.5 years. And I said, okay, well, why is her name still on there? And you said, well, I don't know. I don't have control over her name being on there. I said, well, aren't you the parks manager? Don't you have control over who works for you and who doesn't and who appears to be an employee working for the town? And you said, I don't have access to that. It's a third party who runs our website. And that was a lie. Because as soon as I got off the phone with you, not 30 minutes later, her name was taken off. So there has to be some sort of accountability. You have a private resident who is setting up vendors, over 100 vendors at this event, collecting between $75 and $200 for a vendor fee, going into a personal bank account. And then there's no accountability for her. And she is being represented as working for the town because she was listed under staff. And that to any of us vendors who go to look for some accountability are assuming that she works for the town. And it says it on the applications. Natalie Tucker, Town of Fortville, on all the applications that she puts out, whether it's the parade coordinator or the vendor coordinator for the Summerfest and Winterfest. So my question is, why is this allowed? It's not. And I told him that this can't be legal.
She's under contract, an independent contractor.
May I ask
So
when that contract started?
Well, I think it's been in place ever since.
I'm
What-
sorry, I can hear.
What was that, Heath?
Well, how come when I spoke to you, sir, you did not say that she was contracted? You had no idea. No, well, my questions are to you because I spoke directly to you for accountability. And you said she's separate, she does her own thing. You never once said that she was contracted at all.
Yeah.
First of all, I've got all the applications for Summerfest and Winterfest on here. It does not state that she works for the town. I've gone through every application and nowhere, way, shape, or form does she say, I am a town employee here, I work for the town.
Can I see the form, please?
Here's Winterfest.
It is on a town letterhead, sir?
Okay, let him,
Okay.
okay.
So yeah, we do use a logo, absolutely, because that's the only thing that can go to everybody. Summerfest is that's the application. The town website, as Joe and Andy well knows, has been run by a third party, correct? Correct. Up until recently, very recently, we have not had the ability outside of how many calls have been made to have things change, right?
Been the
We
last
switched,
30
as you
days.
guys know, to
Yeah.
our website designer. And correct me if I'm wrong in doing so, it also repopulated a bunch of old stuff onto the website. Becky Davis was still listed as a council member, so there were some glitches in there. Having a conversation with Andy after I spoke to Ms. Gall, he said, you know what, our new program allows me to be able to go back in and I think I can change it. If not, I'll get a hold of the town website, which by the way, yes, it is listed under parks and on rec staff. And so I can clearly see how that can come across as maybe somebody working for us. There is a personal email address on there. And part of the reason why that's been left on there is because that's how a lot of these vendors communicate with Natalie. That is also where I believe the utilities department, when people call in there, when people call in myself, hey, here's her email address. It's also on the website if you need to look up. As far as the accountability is concerned, if obviously you guys saw this earlier, but in here, and I stated this earlier in an email, there's from Natalie's, I don't want to say requirements. What we ask of Natalie, everything is being done. Obviously, when it comes to the vendors, that is her thing. Okay, we do not get involved. We did for 1 year, 3 years ago, I think it was. We do not have the checks and balances in place to be able to handle.
I think that was the first year you guys took over the Winterfest,
So-
wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is our third year, correct me if I'm wrong, after you guys. Okay, so that very first year, we tried doing it for Summerfest and said, no, we're not doing this. It was too much work for the clerks. It was a mess as far as that was concerned. So that's how all of this came to be with Natalie as a volunteer coming in. Obviously, she was a part-time employee for us the year that we had brought in all of those vendors. And we decided at that point in time that from a pay standpoint, she was moving on with a full-time job elsewhere, that she wanted to stay on and continue to do it as a volunteer. From a compensation standpoint, you handle the vendors, we'll put together something that says what your requirements are, what you can expect from us, which is what that is. The reason I didn't divulge this information to Ms. Gall is because frankly, that information is not relevant for somebody that I don't know that is a vendor over the phone. I am more than happy for whatever requests that need to be made through the town, wherever. If that's something that Alex says, yeah, you can give somebody a contract, there you go. She's more than welcome to read through it and look at it. But I'm not divulging that information over the phone, that we have a written contract, because frankly, it wasn't pertinent to the conversation. I will tell you that every contract in there, I believe it's line 14, also states that 0 refunds will be given regardless. I did have a conversation with Natalie regarding Ms. Gall and Summerfest, and the fact that we had to move those dates, if you remember correctly, because of the fireworks issues. And Natalie had relayed to me that there were only a couple of people that couldn't make it on that following Saturday. After this Winterfest thing has kind of played itself out, one of the conversations I had with Natalie on Saturday, after I believe whatever confrontation happened, I wasn't privy to that. My suggestion to Natalie was, look, we moved the date. Obviously, there was a screw up somewhere with either you getting her an application, her not filling out an application. My suggestion would be is to refund her money for Summerfest and call it good, which has been done. That check was sent out last Monday. I don't know if you've received it yet. And so at that point in time, her refund has been sent out, as well as the other gentleman that couldn't make Summerfest. So that's kind of where we sit. At the end of the day, we don't, and I've said this, we don't have the manpower from a festival standpoint to deal with those kind of vendors. If it is something that the town would like to move away from and having somebody like Natalie doing something like that, unfortunately, our Summerfest at that point in time is probably going to consist of fireworks, a band, and maybe a couple of food trucks, and that's it. Just because we don't have the ability nor the time, most municipalities that do something along this nature have full-time event coordinators. That's all they do is programming events, those type of things. Obviously, that's not something that we're able to do with, being a town under 5,000 still at this point in time. So that's where we're at. Obviously, we want to continue to be able to host these events. I apologize if there was an issue with Natalie. It sounds like, and again, I'm kind of getting this third hand, but it sounds like there's probably some miscommunication on both ends. I did see emails that she's referring to between her and Natalie. And there was a point in there in which Natalie had made a comment about getting approval from the board to be able to refund that back. And I've had those conversations with Natalie about, hey, this is not something that we are involved in. You need to make sure that you understand that, you are taking this on as an individual. So, I've had those conversations. I don't suspect there's any issues on her end with me telling her that. But that's kind of where we're at with it.
So Heath, Natalie reports to you?
Natalie doesn't report to me. We work together on this stuff. We are not employed. We're not, everything that you see in that contract is, as long as she's doing her end of the bargain, which is section 2, A, B, and C, that's what we are asking her to do. As long as those are being done, we've got nothing on our end to complain about.
But you're describing a number of conversations that you had with her that sound like they're of a disciplinary nature, that you had to.
I'm not sure what you're referring to. She made a statement that I told her this is not a town thing. I mean, it's not a disciplinary. I have no way to discipline somebody that's not an employee.
To sort out refunding the money.
She came to me. She came to me and said, "Hey, what do you think? What is?"
That's she's asking
She
him,
asked me advice.
not reporting.
Okay, Heath, why didn't you bring this contract before us?
Didn't think we needed to. This is the same thing from we are not providing any money here to anybody as far as that's concerned. It's the same thing that we do. If you would like to see every contract that I've signed, I'm more than happy to give it to you, but that's going to include floor mats for community centers. It's going to include a lot of different things. This is not anything monetarily. This is essentially.
I can help with this as well.
Make your comment, Alex. The contract says that Natalie, as the contractor, can take all of the proceeds from these events. It says that Fortville is to pay the bills and Natalie is to take the proceeds. So there is mention of some sort of financial exchange there, even if there isn't a salary dollar amount contract amount of payment mentioned.
I disagree with that. I mean, it's her consideration for the services that she gets is that she gets to keep the vendors and the fees that she procures. I mean, it's a procurement contract. With respect to council approval, by town ordinance describing the town manager's duty, which refers to the state law. State law gives Joe as town manager that he shall execute contracts and, among other things, for services, and that he also can delegate that role to anybody that's under him, which Heath would fall there. Through this entire process, when we were putting this agreement together 2-3 years ago, the initial arrangement, I know that Joe and Heath and I talked extensively about that. I think that maybe Tanya and council members wasn't, so there was awareness of the council and Joe. So nothing inappropriate was done. This isn't something that needs legally to be in front of the council. If the council wants to start requiring all of these types of contracts for services, you certainly have the authority to do that. But that's why historically this wasn't in front of the council.
Alex, isn't council approval required for contracts?
That's what no, it's not. State law empowers Joe as town manager to execute certain contracts, including contracts for services. And Joe also can delegate his authority to sign those contracts to anyone that directly reports to him or that reports to him. Heath falls in that line. That's why there's nothing inappropriate with Heath signing this contract, nor with moving forward with this independent contractor agreement without coming in front of the council.
So did this ever come before a town council meeting at all? Like, who knew about this?
Oh,
Tanya,
this was all discussed back at, I don't remember when it was, but when we first did.
Yeah, it was after the first Winterfest that you did, when you were hiring her as part-time and then she was leaving to a full-time job. Then that's when you did the agreement for her to stay. Yeah.
Everybody here has known, I don't know about this because I'm new.
Before you.
Yes, ma'am. I understand that I'm newer here, so I don't know about this, but everybody else up here knows that Natalie has been having people write checks to her personal account. She's been charging $20 extra to use electrical. Fortville pays the bills. She takes the proceeds. Everybody knows this has been the arrangement.
I don't know how, I didn't know how Natalie handled her own business.
Yeah,
I did know that she received the vendor money. I think this is a Natalie
Yeah.
business issue,
Yeah.
not a town issue.
It could be, it just issues there are, it seems, because to write checks to a person's personal bank account seems very strange for an event that's marketed as a town event. I mean, we see all the logos. It's obviously like the Fortville.
It's not uncommon for an event to have different contractors there doing different things they're getting paid for. It's not uncommon to have that.
I'd like to note that, any money brought in through sponsorships does go to the town.
Yeah.
So the
Springfield
costs that you're
Banking.
talking about us accruing are paid for via the sponsorships. So this year, and we had 5 or 6 of them. I can get Adriana to tell you who they were. But I don't remember exactly all of them. There was a S&B Heating, Greenfield Bank. So all of those sponsorship money come in. Natalie is the one that helps with getting that sponsorship dollars in. Those go to the town. The town deposits those into our festival fund, which then is turned around and we use that for things like electrical needs for Summerfest or Winterfest.
You charge me $50 for electrical, and then other people that charge $20, depending on the side. Like tent vendors probably were like the $20. The food trucks were $50 extra. If the sponsors are paying for the electrical that the town is using, why is she charging electrical fee on top of our vendor fee impacting?
So the electrical fees are
Say that on
going
this
to,
contract. Let me see that.
those are irrelevant. The sponsorships are going towards the equipment needed to run the festival. May I ask, when you guys ran Winterfest, did you guys have a cost associated with vendors? Yes. Correct. Correct. About $800. So this year for us, it was. No, it was almost $6,300 this year in electrical equipment for Winterfest. So that is where sponsorship money goes to.
But she's pocketing the electrical.
I understand what you're saying.
Is that not a financial gain as part of this arrangement? Just going back to what we were talking about earlier. How is she collecting?
It's her prerogative to have a financial gain if that's what she wants.
Then she is a paid contractor.
In the $20 for electric or $50.
Like I said, that's not our,
How is that not our business? The town's
It's-
paying for something that
because we have
she's
a
also paying for.
contractor that's doing it.
We don't share.
For parade. She lists herself as a parade coordinator, town of Fortville. And then on at least one other document, she does the same.
I don't have the parade. So,
There's none here that say that.
She was listed as an employee of the town on your website. So this is not job. She is representing herself as an employee.
And I would agree. Per paragraph 4 of the contract, she should not be doing that. And again, that's not a town issue. That's something that Heath or Joe or council, you can have me do it. Inform her that she's in breach of that provision. I mean, it says that she understands, acknowledges that she's not permitted to make any representation to create the appearance that she's employed by the town or either of them. So she's not supposed to do that. So that should come off. I would agree per the terms of the agreement.
She is listed as an employee of the town on the official website. And then she's representing herself on applications as a town employee. But then supposedly she has a separate contract, which I asked you, what does she do? And then at first she told me she was a volunteer.
she is a volunteer.
Self-paid, self-paid.
Independent contractor.
He's independent.
Right.
So my question to you all is, how would you like to proceed with Summerfest, Winterfest vendor procurement at this point?
We obviously need her to do that if that's what we want to have part of.
No, we
Yeah,
don't,
so-
we don't need her to do that.
Are you gonna do it?
Please. I'm not going to do it, but it's part of our decorum ordinance that one town council member is not allowed to assert a position on behalf of all the town council members without a vote. Did we vote on it? Did we vote that we need Natalie to do it?
I just made a comment. Are we gonna argue about this?
Don't assert a position on all of our
I
behalf
did
without
not.
a vote.
I did not.
This happens all the time. You stated an opinion. We don't all necessarily share that opinion.
So again,
So what would you like to do?
What do you want to do, Vanessa?
the question is how do you move forward with an event while having vendors that isn't, we have no one that does that.
It sounds like to me that she should just make it $250 and not say that it's for electrical. Then what would the difference be?
Why not make it 1,000?
Taking it very seriously, I'm just trying to solve the problem.
Vendor fees from a business to be part of the town. And she is misrepresenting herself as a town employee, as well as the town's misrepresenting her because they've left her name as a staff member on their website for over 2 years. And apparently it's a big deal because I'm the first one that's ever complained. Well, I'm sorry that something that's wrong and not correct, because she is lying on the application to vendors and saying she is.
Yeah.
Does it say that on it? So the application doesn't say that anyway.
Then she needs to fix that.
I have a question for Heath. So Heath, Natalie was originally employed by the town to do this, right?
Part-time, yeah.
Part-time employed, but you said up front that it wasn't really making sense financially, because you guys are saying like, what should we do, right? You're saying that it didn't make sense financially. What I'm hearing is it costs too much, like it costs too much to keep her on the payroll part-time.
From an employee standpoint, yes. It payroll wise, it didn't make sense for what our abilities are right now.
Festivals, I mean, just to kind of simplify the situation, the festivals that she was hired to manage were not generating enough income to cover her salary, basically. Is that like when you add it all up and subtract it?
They are break even events if we're lucky.
And so that's the kind of information that we should take and deliberate on. Do we care? Like if we have a person hired and all we're doing is basically breaking even, is that unacceptable to us? It sounds like there was some decision was made in the past because that led to the arrangement that we have now. But there are some issues with this arrangement because it's rubbing vendors the wrong way to be sending checks to personal accounts. You've got issues with if she's representing herself as a town employee, or if not, what is she? I think common sense would dictate that a town marketed event should be run by legit town employees that show up on the town's website and they wear a town, vest like yours, for example, and they're town employees. And if we find that we need to make some other arrangement because we can't afford it, maybe we look at that. But just going back to the basics, you're saying that we just barely broke even.
This year for Winterfest, we are probably in the hole a little bit. We have managed, so just.
Well, not this year, but when she was on the payroll as an employee.
Oh, yeah. I mean, from a payroll standpoint, the cost of, and all those numbers are somewhere, I can find them, but her salary was essentially more than what we were coming close to bringing in. Like if we were bringing in, for example, $10,000 in sponsorships, Summerfest cost us $9,300, right? So there was maybe a $700 uptick there. It was not, her salary was not being paid. The goal or the hope was that we could bring in enough sponsorships and or other monies that it would offset her salary in our budget. That was not the case.
So if you had a town employee hired to do a job and the job is to bring in at least as much money as we're spending to make fun parties for the town. Maybe we hire a different person who brings in enough money to do the same job? No? Is that an option?
I don't think we are in a position to hire somebody as an event coordinator.
Not big enough for
How many issues of like this have we had in the 3 years that we've been doing it like this?
none.
Well, one,
That we know of.
one now.
Yes, counting that, but one, yes. I also want, and maybe this is some personal conjecture here, but, and Joe probably disagrees with me on this. We took over, and just so everybody's clear, Summerfest was taken over from the Chamber of Commerce. They disbanded and didn't want to do it anymore. And it was kind of thrown on the town that, hey, we want to keep doing this, but we don't have anybody to do it. And so that's kind of how Summerfest came to be where it's at. FEI did a great job of starting Winterfest over 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. And they came to us a couple of years ago and said, we can't handle this anymore. This is not the direction that we want to go. Winterfest is going to die unless somebody keeps it going. We kept it going as quote unquote a town event. My personal opinion is the town should be here to support events such as Cammie's Cause and Farm Group and things like that. I don't know that we should be hosting events. But again, if we don't do it, those events die with us saying, we're not doing that.
A parks that would take this over. Just curious.
We're brainstorming, looking at options.
Oh, that's not.
No, I mean, we're looking at options. I'm saying hire a different person. You're saying make a post with different options.
Can we just, can we just address
We are the
the
park.
issue at hand so that we're not here all
Yeah,
night?
yeah.
And we can talk about a parks board at another time because that doesn't answer the question of why she's here. And what do you want to gain from this? What are you wanting to?
Joe Kwong with the town doing however they have to do their business, vendor wise, whoever's running it. I'm a very easy going for, I run a business, I just want to make money. And I want to do it legally. And so when I have a person that's representing herself as a town employee, and on a few applications, she does do that. And on the website, she's listed as an employee, there's no accountability for her. And when we're writing personal checks, like all the other events I do, we never write a personal check for a thing that we're doing at Fisher to a private person. It's illegal. You cannot do that. And so alarm bells go off when I have her lying to me, and then I call him and I assume he's lying to me because what he's telling me is not accurate. And then there's no accountability for this person. And so she can do whatever she wants. She can, and there's no accountability. So my thing is, why was she allowed to be represented as a town employee and then collect money and put it in her personal account? And then if she would have just said, I apologize, Melissa, this was a huge mistake, which it was a huge mistake because she told me where she was going to place me. How do you not know we were going to be there? I would have said, you know, she would have said, I'll give you your money back in the next week or two. Maybe Winterfest is on us, whatever the case. If she would have just been nice, I wouldn't have gone digging, because it really upsets me when people lie about simple things because it feels like you're covering something up. And I'm a direct person. I'm not a mean person. I just want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
You guys can run the events however you want. I'm not here to say anything about that. I love Fortville. I love the people of Fortville. I think the events are great. And I want to be a part of them. I just don't want to be lied to as a person that participates in the town event.
Yeah, I totally understand that. It sounds like it does sound like I could see your side. Heath goes and it gets changed quickly and it looks like he's trying to cover up. I think that was just circumstance. I don't think Heath's here to lie or anything like that. But Natalie is a contract employee. Do we call her an employee? She's a contractor.
Independent contractor.
And the way she's doing business is what I would think you should question. And bringing it to our attention then allows us to next year, when we choose to have a contractor, we may or may not have someone like that. But
Or the same arrangement.
Contract set up is she can sell 400 dues. And she doesn't have to pay for the toilets. She don't have to pay for the trash removal. She don't have to pay for the electricity. I just think this was all.
She could charge whatever fee she wants.
And then she
No
could
rules
charge,
here.
like she could charge $50 for electrical hookup on top
Then
of her. That's the only thing
we don't
I'm
call it a
worried
town
about.
event.
It's
Is that?
I said that we don't call it a town event because.
Yeah.
Maybe so, be so.
Right. Saying is, that should never been, she should have been charging $20 for electricity.
200 versus 75 versus whatever amount. There's a lot of different strange stuff happening.
Can I interject one thing? Just, I wanted, your accountability is a good point, and I think for the council, at least as the town attorney, I appreciate hearing about this because the accountability for Ms. Tucker is, I think, Natalie, is getting this contract over. And, if she's in breach of the terms of the contract by doing something, if she's misrepresenting herself as an employee, or if she's charging fees that aren't within the scope of what she's allowed to, we need to know about that so that we can decide whether to terminate the agreement, which the town has the ability to do, or is starting to be discussed, I think, whether or not to engage with her next year or to put it out for another contractor. So I think it's important what you're bringing to the town because there are consequences. There's accountability via the agreement that we have with her, this independent contractor agreement. So.
My problem was being represented in a way that she's not working for the town. And then in that process, she's taking money into a personal account. So that's really the conflict of interest that if she truly is a contractor, maybe she should set up a business account or whatever the case is. But as a resident who participates in these events, I keep my business on the up and I do things legally. I get all my permits and do what I'm supposed to do properly. So when she's representing herself as an employee of the town and then she's taking money and putting in a personal account, it just doesn't jive. And then now, do I fear that she'll blacklist me? Will I not be allowed to participate again because she runs the events? So.
I would suggest if you think that that's happening, or any other vendors that you think that's happening, that you would let Heath know, because certainly that's not, again, with this particular agreement that we have, if that's how the contractor is behaving, that's not what's envisioned in this.
He didn't want to. What do you want me to? You just simply laying it out. I don't feel comfortable because he says she has no accountability. He told me that. He says she does something. She's not accountable to anybody. So
You can always.
Well, you came to the right spot. You came
Right.
to town council. And I thank you. And we'll look.
Appreciate that very much. I just had one other question. Did you have any other, you said that your money was refunded for the fee. Did you have any other costs? Can you paint us a picture of what it's like to miss out on an event that you were planning for?
So this year's supposedly now they have me next to the stage, more center. I would assume that I would have made more money, but I can't really go off of that. I'm just assuming. So I purchased items because I emailed her the day before my stuff to prep all my food. And then she's like, sorry, you're not in the events. Even though we have an email chain where she says where she's placed me in the events.
So normally you make like $2,400, $2,500 off an event like this. So this is also an opportunity cost. Okay, thank you.
I would suggest moving forward that maybe we look into how some other towns are doing it, seeing what they're charging for vendors, seeing if there's a separate electrical fee, seeing I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's some kind of like Riley Festival has their own entity through Greenfield, that they have their own people do that. I think Riley is set up as maybe a 501c3 separately through the town of Greenfield or the city of Greenfield somehow in there. But seeing how Fishers handles that, who vendors write checks to at that point in time, and kind of see how that plays. Again, if we don't have a contract or contractor in place, we just don't do the events. It's pretty simple on our end. We as a town, just so everybody's aware too, long before Summerfest even became a thing, the town allotted X amount of money every year for fireworks, and that was it. That was the only thing that went in. I believe Robert Johnstone started that, and then it kind of morphed from there. We now have in our annual budget right around 5 for the fireworks, and then another 5 for essentially toilets, trash, those type of things is in the budget. So
It's a good idea to look into how other towns and cities are doing this kind of thing.
I can tell
Good
you just from
suggestion.
experience, most cities aren't, they're supporting. They do what we do for Cammie's Cause, right? Cammie's Cause comes in, they procure their own vendors, they do their own fundraising, they do all that. We, as a town, which by the way, they charge their vendors whatever.
Yeah, but they're saying electrical hookup.
Cammie's Cause has their vendors pay for electrical too. Pay us for the electrical use during that event.
They get their own splitter boxes. We're
But
paying for this.
it's at a high level to look into similar events that other towns put on, you know, if it's a Christmas event or a summer event. Is it town branded? Is it what kind of branding? Is it, you know, who owns it and who runs it? And that, it's a good suggestion to look into how other towns are
The
doing
one
this.
that pops into my head right now is Chris Kringle Mart, right? It's Carmel's Chris Kringle Mart.
Right.
But that's not, it's flagged as Carmel, but it's not Carmel behind it.
Yeah, they spent $8 million in the past 8 years.
They do the area.
Something smaller scale. You know, that's a good idea. To look into, you know, similar events. Chris Kringle Market is also a Christmas event, but much bigger. So maybe not similar that way, but maybe if we can do an inventory of other small towns that are having events that are like this and see what shakes out. That's a good idea. I think.
Any other questions for me?
We'll look into it. Thank you.
Mhm.
You might want to come up. We can't hear you on Zoom or from the audience.
Milda Starrett. If there's an issue, I mean, nobody wants the festival to go away, and if they want Natalie to do it, can she just not ask her vendors to make the checks out to the town of Fortville? I have personally had businesses say to me, why am I making a check out? I said, it's not us, so I don't know why. But if she's a contractor, why can't she not ask her vendors to make the checks out to the town? And I would think that would solve the issue, wouldn't it?
Which checks? The sponsorship
The
checks or
vendor
the
checks.
vendor?
No, the vendor checks.
Well, we want to keep the town out of taking that money and then reissuing, running it through our book. And
Okay.
that's part, just like the last services agreement that we did, and I don't think it came before the count, was for line locates, right, Joe? We don't want we want the contractor, the line locate folks to take their payment and we agree,
Okay.
it just goes directly to
We
the.
don't want to make any money on it? Like I understand, you're saying you don't want to handle it.
Profit. Where are they?
We can't.
That is not a,
That's my question.
I mean.
Allowed to make?
No, you can't, I mean, you're supposed to be generally speaking, you try to cover your expenses through tax dollars or sponsorships or things like that for the services the town.
Which takes me back to, I don't understand.
That's a policy decision, not a legal.
Okay, no, thank you for explaining it, but that takes me back to my original question of why was it such a big bad deal before? If we were having trouble breaking even, if we're not supposed to do better than breaking even, then why was it so bad in the first place to be barely breaking even on these events? If we're not supposed to better than break even, I'm just putting it out there. I don't really see what the problem is.
I don't have an opinion of that, good or bad.
Say this. So the whole idea for Winter Festival was to bring people to town, to help the businesses in town. It wasn't really to make money. Fortville Action had to raise about $8,000 to $10,000 a year just to put Winterfest on. It was break even at best. But it was all about the businesses on Main Street being more successful. When we started, there were like 5 businesses on Main Street. When we got done, there was a hell of a lot more. That's what the whole thing is. I think that if Natalie would create an LLC, Winter Festival LLC or whatever, that would solve a lot of the problem. So people don't think they're writing a check to this individual. If that's okay with you guys, So be it. Don't go away.
Yeah.
But just square up the contract.
For next year's contract, if the council or Heath or council, you guys can direct it still to not contract with an individual, insist that it's a, an entity, that's fine. More than likely, whether it's Natalie or someone else, it might be, a single member LLC or a single chair. So for tax purposes, it's the same as the individual. For appearance's sake, it does look different than writing it, to an individual human being rather than to an individual entity.
Is it still a Town of Fortville Winterfest then? Is it still a Fortville branded event?
That's something that.
I mean, that's what happens in bigger cities where they have, just like Raleigh Festival is the one that runs Raleigh Festival for Greenfield. We're just not big enough to have that. And nobody's stepping up other than Fortville Action that created it, that says, I'm going to, we're going to take care of it all. So that's how that happens.
That's okay. We just can't have somebody ripping off and being difficult.
I
to
don't think
manage.
she's trying to rip off anybody.
Maybe not trying to, but it's just.
I think it's something that's to our attention. We'll get it taken care of. You got your money back and I'm glad that you have it back. And I know you sustained a loss and I'm sorry about that, but I think that moving forward, we'll be able to take care of it. It is. No, there's not a lot of people that want to donate their time these days, and she does. Yeah. Donation. Dave.
My member of the
Sure.
public hat on
Okay,
right now.
go ahead.
So I have a little bit of experience in doing vendor events, so I wanted to share really quick. I'll be very brief because I know it's been a very long meeting. I worked as a volunteer for Greene County Tourism. That's where my home county is, Greene County. They had nobody to do anything. They never did. There's a lot of cool stuff down there to go see. We started from scratch. I worked with them for 10 years, just had a bunch of volunteers getting together. Didn't know what we were doing, and I just led them. And one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to promote things made in our county. So we created a Made in Greene County event. Okay. We got the central high school in the county. We coordinated the date when we were going to do it. And we had it in there and they provide the electricity. We had this vendor. So I had to set up vendors and tape it all off and figure it out all. I originally took cash and check, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with all this because this is me, because we're not an LLC. We're a bunch of volunteers trying to do something good for our county, similar to what Derek did for Winterfest under Fortville Action. So we did that. We did that probably for 7 years. Very successful event. We had lots. We didn't be Avon or Tupperware. You had to make stuff actually made in the county. You had to live in the county. Lots of cool stuff. It was amazing, actually. But I started doing it all through Eventbrite. Okay, that's one important thing. I never touched the money. It went into an account, and I had the local bank set up an account. It wasn't LLC. We weren't nobody. And then I transferred it over to economic development when I left and let them kind of run it. So we worked with the economic development and the county commissioners to kind of do this, kind of promote the county and tourism. Okay. Second of all, we did charge more for electric, not to get spider boxes. Okay, that's a whole nother ball game of outside. We did charge more for food trucks when we did have them twice. I think we had food trucks actually. The reason why, it's about how close, there's only so many outlets in a gymnasium. So it's prime spot to be next to an outlet. And normally an outlet's normally by somewhere like a stage or somewhere, an entryway, things like that, or a door. So I'm elderly, I can, exit quickly in and out of that gymnasium door. So those came with a higher premium. So it may not just be access to the electricity that Fortville pays for, it may be a premium. Now, how the money gets to whoever in your situation is not what I'm trying to suggest what you need to, but I was just giving you Eventbrite, and then we did charge more for that premium, for that access to the electric. So however you do it, but I just thought that those might be ideas. And what I would say to everyone here, for you guys, I would suggest you guys form a little committee. Maybe the police department, the parks department, some of your businesses.
I think we tried that and it didn't go over so well, did it? It was tried and it failed.
No, but a committee to talk about what you need to do. No, I didn't know. A committee to report back to here about these concerns. And probably need to do it before we don't have enough time to plan for the next, right? So that would be my suggestion, so.
Yeah. Thanks, babe. Yeah. We have, come on up, yeah. Sorry, you had. Sorry about that.
Isn't he
Yes,
glad?
it is.
He's glad he let her go first, you know?
So David Bach, I'm one of the owners of the Harmony property on 406 Maple. I'm pretty sure Matt Barton's on the phone. He's my business partner. Our wives are the two dentists that would be working in that office. So I took some notes when you guys were going through it. I didn't want to interrupt you. If you don't mind, I'll go right through it. And
Sure.
then if you have any questions, I can go right after. And I also suck at talking in public. So
You're doing great. You both did great.
So I'm an engineer and project manager by day. So one of, I think Libby's concern was that the house would not get completed. I'm running all these projects personally, so I'm making sure they do get completed. 401 renovation timeline, we're ready to go. We just need a permit. We already got our drawings in. Adam mentioned that as well. Vanessa asked, why did we buy it all? Did we have ulterior motives for the 411 property?
Not ulterior, just wondering what they were.
Okay. So, based on the ordinances with the parking that we calculated, we would need more parking. That the initial intent, yes, we did buy 411 to demolish it to put parking, just to meet the requirement of what the redevelopment requires. Actually, Adam had some really good ideas where we can adjust that parking. And that is the plan that got shown today, which kept the same amount of spots, kept the house. The thing is, no one's going to want to live in a house that's surrounded by asphalt.
Right.
So the benefit, it's kind of a in between. If we rezone it commercial, we get the parking to make the whole site happy, but you also don't have a house in the middle of an asphalt lot.
What I was curious about with that was why you bought, I mean, it is just a natural point of curiosity, why you bought a residentially zoned property in the middle of a residential area with the plan to tear it down, but that would require rezone, that would require us to
Complete
approve
risk,
that.
business risk.
Just, okay, so just a
Complete
total
business risk.
calculated risk that you just bought
I
it
mean,
and
if it
figured.
doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, but that is what our hope is. And we think it'll benefit the community with the businesses that we can add there.
Are you, I mean, have you considered the fact that it's a residential area, there's a housing shortage, there's a house being torn down around the
I have
corner
that
in the
further
same
in
part
my
of town?
notes. If I can just get
Sure.
through this.
Okay, sorry, please, yeah.
So mentioned the new intentions, 411 current state. So you mentioned that it looks beautiful from the outside.
Not beautiful, just
Well-
historic and okay, yeah.
Inside, there are roof leaks and the whole house is full of mold. The residents have been living with that with the previous owner. We don't want that, obviously. So the plan is to gut the whole inside, because there is nothing to salvage in there. So this is part of our plan after that. It's not that we're trying to take away residential. It's that these people have been living in this house for years and it's just been mold, roof leaks. They've complained to their previous landlord and he has done nothing about it. So that is regarding 411. I did want to mention in conclusion, we are excited to grow with Fortville. We all come from small towns, so kind of trying to adapt. We did attend the Winterfest. That was a lot of fun. Actually reminded me a lot of Jersey. So I'm originally from Jersey. We moved here about 6 years ago. We actually locked down the whole town for a parade when we do it. So it was kind of nice to see that. You don't really see it too often. And I did want to offer for Winterfest, if we get approval for the lot, of course, we would be more than happy to use that lot to expand Winterfest to the other side of Broadway as well.
Okay,
Any questions?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it.
Yeah,
Thanks for, you
thanks.
did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming to
Welcome-
Portville.
welcome to Fortville.
I'm excited about.
That's okay. That's all right.
I'm excited to have something nice.
Any more public comment? Did we cover everybody? Mitch, you want to say something? Toasty, you got something to say?
Anybody else?
Okay,
Come on.
okay. All right, council, Libby,
No, I'm ready to eat dinner.
I
Brian.
got something real quick. I'm sorry. Coming down westbound on Broadway here on the highway. there's only a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, and you don't get a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign until past the stoplight. So people come flying in there at 40 mile an hour to the stoplight, and you have the digital stop, or the digital 50 or the 30 mile an hour after the stoplight, closer to Oak, is that Oak or whatever, the road that comes out there?
Yeah, they got 30 mile out in front of Denver's.
But that's 30 all through town, except coming in the other way, it's 30 all in town, but coming in from this way, it's 40.
It's 40 right up until.
So I think that there would need to be something out here somewhere to slow people into town.
I'll reach out to NDOT. We've had that discussion. They actually lowered that speed limit. Their state ordinance from Windstone all the way to 3 West is now 30 miles. It's not until past that. It says you just need to update your sign.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, up until about last week out here, they had a flashing sign to 30. And it was lit up and it let people know, but they took it away this past week.
I was gonna say,
I don't know where it went.
That's what happened. Safe, I think it is who they get their signs from.
Safe left a sign too over there on Pearl Street. I think they forgot it.
They've left a few of them.
Yeah.
I think every road that comes up to Broadway on that side. So,
I was gonna say, you bring up a good point about that going westbound, but that makes no excuse for eastbound, where I've seen people blow the red light at Maple Street twice in a row. The last 2 times that I've been at that intersection on foot, and it's, like they just blow right through it.
Taking my kids.
No remorse, just blow right through it. So Broadway, kind of dangerous right now. Yeah.
That's it. Christmas.
Merry Christmas. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I make a motion to approve and sign vouchers.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Make a motion to adjourn 9:46. All in favor? Thank goodness.
Good meeting.